本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。What's good, Internet? It's Friday, September 11th, and you're listening to Waypoint Radio, episode 344. I'm your host, Austin Walker. Joining me today, back with a camera for us to see, Gita Jackson.
Hello.
Hi, Gita.
Hi.
You're back.
It's so nice to see you.
I've not seen your face now in months because of camera mishaps. But we're glad to have you back visually among us.
Oh, you can see my cat now, too, if you'd like to.
Oh, that's ideal, honestly.
Yeah, honestly.
Patrick Klepek also here.
Hello, hello.
No cat, though, so what's the point?
No, that would, if I want a cat in my house, no. Well, I mean, it's not the cat's fault that they make me feel like shit, but that's just the world we live in.
And Ricardo Contreras also here. No camera.
What? Allergies are terrible. Allergies are
terrible.
Allergies are terrible. I am allergic to my own cat, okay? And so is David.
Well, no, but you can build up growing up, my brother had some stuff going on. Anyway, and like they thought that like an animal would like calm him down. And so my mom ended up adopting these two cats. And she had to run it by me because she was like, so, we think this is going to like help your brother out, but you're allergic to animals. So this is you're going to take a hit here.
Yeah. You're taking
time to be a big brother.
Yeah. All right. And the solace was that they had, the doctors had said, look, it's going to be a shit show for a couple of weeks. And then you'll grow an immunity to those specific cats, and which is true. It did happen. I just like loaded
Not
up
all
on
cats, just those specific
just
ones?
those specific cats,
Okay.
and then
that's kind of wild.
It is, and then when I moved to college, it just goes like it's just gone.
It's gone.
Like you're gone. I came home relatively quickly. Like I think came home like Labor Day weekend, and so it was only gone for like 2.5 weeks, and just boom, immediately it was just like all right. Like the door to my room has to be closed because it's like the only place in the house I could go without feeling. But you'd gain it back during like a holiday, like a Christmas or something. Like like 3 or 4 days in, your body be like, this isn't good, but I can put this back on. Like, all right, I'll let you feel okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. David realized the day that he came over to meet my cat before we moved in together that he is allergic to cats and his dad is really, really allergic to cats. So like this was a touch and go moment in our relationship, but he got to this place where he's like, I can see how much having a cat does for you emotionally, and there's no way I would ever tell you not to have a cat. Like the first day I had Ella, I was basically just staring at her and crying.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I can't believe you're real and you're my baby. Now he feeds her in the morning because I never wake up when she starts crying for food. And she comes and cuddles with him when I'm in here podcasting because she hates podcasting for some reason. She doesn't.
Wow.
She'll want to be in this room with me until the very moment I start podcasting, and then she's like,
"Why is Mama yelling all the time?"
Yeah. I think that's not. I actually think that she understands it's work time. I'll go bother David. I'm gonna give you space. You know what I mean?
All he's doing is watching Zardoz.
Right. Exactly. Maybe Ella wants to watch Zardoz too. Ella wants to know what the difference.
Ella knows. Yeah. The penis is bad. The gun is good.
The gun is good. Right. That's Ella classic. Real good, big fan of psychedelic sci-fi from the era. How's everyone doing besides microphones and webcams working and cats and everything else?
We figured it out,
I'm just saying, how is the rest of things going? How is life?
Well, I mean, it's only fitting that my technological problems fit my health problems. I had a horrible food poisoning this week and then a migraine.
Gita.
So I'm just so happy to see you guys and not be
we're
physically
on the other
ill.
side of all of it now.
Yes, it's over.
We can talk about video games, which is exciting.
Migraines are bad.
Migraines are the actual worst thing.
I got them. I had migraines when I was
a
kid. I thankfully grew out of them, but those were
ruining.
My parents thought I had a tumor or something because they just came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
one day.
I mean it's wild. Like I also started having migraines when I was in like 5th grade. I was like 10. Yeah. And then I realized, for me, they're like linked to my cycle. So once a month, baby, gonna get a bad migraine.
Sure. Interesting.
Yeah,
that's brutal.
Yeah, it's blood loss.
Right.
I'm losing blood.
What was happening to me then? Well,
I don't know.
I'm losing them for all sorts of reasons. I get like 3 bad ones a year. and it just knocks me out for like a day plus each time. And I don't know what causes them. Sometimes it feels like it's weather, like certain styles, like overcast will trigger
Did
it.
you?
But I don't know.
I found like
Pressure.
weird tricks to feel like mild relief when those like episodes would occur. For some reason, the cold made me feel better.
Definitely.
I don't know, like maybe there's a science.
Just literally holding and pushing in on my head.
I do that thing like right
on
here.
your temples. 100%.
It really
dark,
does work.
Obviously, it's just like no stimulus.
If I can stand it, a hot shower.
A hot shower.
If I can get up.
If the water doesn't hurt me, being new.
If I can
like,
shower
sensation.
in the dark,
100%.
like pain free. Yeah.
100%. This is the only time I've ever seen a Black Widow spider. I had a migraine, and I went into my this is when I was living in California. I went into my bathroom to take a shower in the dark, and at like 6 a.m. because I couldn't sleep because I was in so much headache pain. And a Black Widow spider scurried away, and I was like, "This sucks. I hate this. I can't. I can't do anything, and I'm in pain. I'm going back to bed. Fuck this."
Also, when you're like in that level of pain and you see that shit and you're like, wow, that's about par for the course.
Yes.
Yeah, that matches how I feel inside.
I'm wrong that's the only time. That was the only time in my own apartment. That whole area had them. And so like our little shitty dive bar that was down the road had them. Just would be like, oh yeah, we're drinking outside and
so
above
you got a
us
tall
over
boy
there,
and then just like a Black Widow,
Black
just
Widow up in
spinning
the
a web.
corner. And it's just like, we just got to just be over here. We just, you know what? You stay up there. We're going to stay over here.
It.
I didn't like it
don't
either.
like it.
I made bad decisions at that bar.
A couple
Also, there were Black Widow spiders there.
a week ago. Tarantulas, I have like a general phobia for, and then spiders, it's just like the size of the spider. Like if a smaller one, I'm fine. I can like help get it outside. Like the spiders are good. Like they get rid of the insects and mosquitoes you don't like. So I like leave them alone generally in the house unless they're like getting away the kids or something like that. But then about a week ago, I was putting out the garbage and glanced into our laundry room area, and on the floor, just in the middle of the floor, is just the biggest motherfucker. I'm getting goosebumps even thinking about it. Like he's so big. And I'm sure it was actually not that big, but in my mind's eye,
incredible.
This thing was like the size of a tile. Like it was so
That's so funny.
big. And because usually around like a house in the Midwest, you're largely seeing daddy long legs sort of things, or tiny ones up in the corner. But this was just a big boy. And it was like just after midnight. I was not gonna wake my wife up. She is normally the one who she can't fuck with like mice and stuff like that.
Okay.
That doesn't bother me. So I deal with that in the house, and she deals with like escorting a spider out. And I was like, well, what do I do? This cannot stand.
Right.
I was like,
I can't cede this territory to the spider.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I'm gonna put the garbage away. I'm gonna think about it, which is really just me punting on it for about 2
and then I'm gonna go back and it's gonna be gone, and I can tell myself it left.
And it's all the way downstairs. It's so far away. I can just out of sight, out of mind. Come back, and it's just there. Maybe it's closer. I'm not sure. And I'm like, I have to deal with this. And it's like, great respect to my spider friends, but this one is going, like, for all the ones that I've done nothing about, this one is going to just have to be. I won't go to sleep. I will not sleep for the next hour. And so I was like, well, I don't want to get close to it because this one looks like it's going to scurry. And if it scurries, I'm going to scream. And if I scream, I'm going to wake up the house, and we're going to start from square one. And so I'm like looking around like, what? I need like a heavy object so that if I don't hit it, I can like slide into it. Which is a little grosser way to handle it, but the deed is done.
No, you know what?
Around,
yeah.
And in my closet near me, at some point, Sony had sent me that garbage PS1 like release that, you know, the PS1 classic that they did that nobody liked unless you hack it to play like ROMs and stuff. But it's heavy. And so I got that thing, and I'm like doing what's the Olympic thing where you're a shot put? No, what is it? Where you're throwing a disc?
Discus.
Is it the one where you like throw it? I don't know what I'm trying to think.
Discus.
Anyway,
Yeah, it's discus.
Okay,
the one where you throw a disc is discus.
Yeah, and so like this spider is my target, and so I'm like sitting there going like one,
oh my God,
2. No, I don't feel good about this. 1, 2, and then release, and like dun 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 dun. And I'm watching it go through the air and just clunk. clomp, just like right on top.
Wow.
And I'm like, bye-bye. Wow. And I woke up the next morning and I told my wife, I was like, I'm not even picking that up. I don't even want to look at the result of that. I need you to take care of that.
Well, now it's going to be all gross. If you had taken care of it right away,
that PS1 was already gross. It didn't get any grosser for the spider on it.
Did you think, was there some small part of you that thought if I move the PS1, it'll still be alive under there, and like an anime villain?
100%.
You know what I mean? The dust clears and the spider is still there.
Yes.
I was only drawing you in, Patrick. And then, boom, strikes. And then you're a spider. I don't know.
Oh, no.
Yeah. They're like vampires.
My shitty origin story.
Mm-hmm. God. We should talk about video game stuff, probably.
Sure, fine.
Patrick, you're only here probably for the first half of this pod, so let's jump into news immediately. There was a big leak early this week, and Microsoft played it, I think, as well as they could have, as they quickly teased and then confirmed that the leak was accurate. We now know more details on the upcoming Series S and Series X Xbox release consoles. I don't like having to say the series. Like, what do I call this family?
The Xbox
I guess this
Series.
Is the new Xbox Series. Yeah. I don't like that. I don't like it. Anyway.
There's the S and the X.
But
that's not great either.
No, that's bad.
No. See, it was just like, because before I could say the new Xbox Ones that are coming out. I can't. Right. I guess I could just say the new Xboxes that are coming out. You'll know what I mean.
Right. Yeah. It's like iPhones.
Right, exactly, right. But even in iPhones, you're right. I guess what you'd say is this is they haven't made this transition yet. You would say like the new 2020 iPhones that are dropping, right? Or that's what people might say. I don't know.
And the Series X is just like a pro. It's like a pro model, 4K 1080p.
Exactly. So this is what we found out, right? Like that was the leak. Basically, was and then again confirmed very quickly. The Series S is the model that is targeted for basically for 1080p TVs. It outputs at 1440p.
Yeah,
it hits 60 frames per second. It will
up to 120 if you like based on certain games.
Right, and it's $299. But a lot of the internals are similar. Is the vibe? You tell me.
Tell
me tech stuff.
Brad, channel my inner Brad Shoemaker and Will
Please.
Smith here, as someone who's not like a particularly adept tech person, but yeah, that's why I think like the 1080 4K like thinking is worth like basically reducing it to. Like we could sit here and talk flops and yada yada yada, and like I don't know what I'm speaking to. Like when I've talked to developers, like based on how Microsoft's also pitching it, it's basically if you don't care much about 4K. Like, and you're fine with your 1080 display. This is the device for you. It also doesn't have a disk drive, so you're going digital, which is only actually in that regard.
I am not a disk drive person at this point in my life. I all of my consoles have them because those are the consoles that I have. I will again probably end up with consoles with disk drives. I probably won't get the Series S, but I basically don't buy discs anymore. But that's because I have. I don't have good internet because I don't have an option. I have one thing I can have, and it's fine. But I have better internet than many people, and I don't.
It's also the case that we get most of our games, like a lot of our games, through like codes that get sent to us.
Totally.
If I was buying most of my games, I still like physical things, and so the games that I like, there are lots of games that I love that sometimes I'll just go buy a physical copy later when it's on sale, so I can put it on a shelf. So like even if in a world where this wasn't my job, I'd probably be trying to buy the disc one if I could, just because I like the flexibility.
Totally. You like that style of collecting things. And so I know that I am an exception in some ways, but I do think that it's important to have an option for people who want to own the things they own and not just tie it to digital licenses and stuff like that. And it sucks that there's a $200 surcharge for that. Because there isn't a Series S that comes. It's not like you'd be like, oh, can I get a Series S?
And they're not going to sell a disc drive. There's not going to be a USB hookup that like lets you put in Assassin's Creed discs or something like that.
Which would be sick, honestly. If you could just hook on, if they were like, oh yeah, and you can hook up an external Blu-ray drive and run copy the games off of that. That would be sick. But they're not going to let you do that because that's not what happens.
The future they want is no discs and just clouds and downloads.
Yeah. But $299 is for
it's a wild price.
It's a wild price. I guess they've now confirmed, or it had already been confirmed, that the Series X was going to be $499. So those are like
the original leak from Windows Central on Sunday evening, which you mentioned, but it is worth. There are probably places on Reddit or Reset Era that have compiled the tweets of Microsoft reacting to the leak in basically real time. Like, their social team is actually quietly like very, very good. The best demonstration of this, I think, is like the Xbox Game Pass Twitter account is legitimately just funny. Like, I added it to my list of like, I have like a list of games accounts that I not follow, but have a list in Twitter. Mm-hmm. And I just added them, not because I need to get Game Pass updates, but because like they're just funny. And they found a way of responding to this in a way that was how you should in 2020 respond to something confirming a very obvious thing that you're dragging your feet on. Right. And yeah, there's that leak on Sunday night that was like, November 10th, $299 for the S, and then $499 for the Series X, which then they confirmed on separate days, but all the information lined up. And also the Series X, I think, looks fucking cool.
Wait, which one?
The S, the one with the speaker.
That's not actually a speaker.
No,
though.
It's not a speaker. I'm sure it's a vent.
It's a vent,
but
right?
It looks like I'm holding up a walkie-talkie or something. I think it looks slick.
People who haven't seen it, it's like very thin and small. It looks like it honestly looks like you could fit 2 controllers in there and no more. You know what I mean? If it was a box that opened, it would be a carrying case for 2 Xbox controllers, 2 current gen Xbox controllers, not Dukes, not original giant Xbox controllers. And it's tiny. It's kind of cute. I kind of think I'm down. I'm with you.
Yeah. And it's just, it's unscientific, but recently I was tweeting about trying to buy a 4K TV in advance of all this stuff. And then in talking to folks, like when this stuff was announced, I don't have like the numbers in front of me, but I think like there's like so little enthusiasm for 4K as a tech. Not that some people aren't interested in it, or maybe it's important to them, but I'm impressed by like where Microsoft has landed on these 2 boxes. I will buy a Series X because I really want to upgrade my PC, but that's like a $1,500 ordeal. And buying a Series X is basically I can spend $500 and have like a decently high-end PC for the next 2 years, and then I'll figure out what to do with my PC in a couple of cycles. I think like, especially with these like installment plans that they toyed with on the Xbox One and then now have like fully rolled out for the Series S and the Series X, especially because now it's beyond America. It was just a North American thing or just a United States thing for a while, but now I think there's something like 10 or 12 countries they're going to be able to, for like no interest. What it's like $25 and $35 depending on how much box you get.
Yeah.
You end up paying own the box at the end less.
Of it. Oh, really?
Yeah, someone mathed it out, and you end up paying $10 less by doing the it's.
Yeah, it's no interest. It's no. It is not a Rent-A-Center like.
Right.
Get
it's
you
not
on
it's just. I've been thinking a lot about, because now I live, me and David haven't set up our living room yet. We don't have a couch, so we're just kind of sitting on chairs and have a coffee table and just eat our dinner around the coffee table, Yeah. We've been keeping our TV in the bedroom. We have no real interest in 4K or just scaling up in any way. Having studied cinema, I'm skeptical about how a lot of these home theater things, how they actually play out, whether or not they actually enhance image quality. I think it really just depends on how big your screen is, and when the big differences in having how many pixels are on the screen really matters. And a lot of people, they did those distinctions, those technical distinctions. I don't know. I just feel like I could get a cheaper TV. I'll be happy.
Well, that was when I bought my last TV like 8 years ago. That was like during the like Avatar 3D thing. Yeah. And so when my wife and I were trying to figure out what to buy, it was like Thanksgiving is when I ended up pulling the trigger, and we were looking at them. I was like, I can get we had like set a baseline of like $500 is what we're gonna spend. And I was like, look, I can get a 60-inch TV, which that sounds big because we had like a 37 or something. It was like doubling the size of our TV. Yeah. So I can get a 60-inch for $450, or it's like I can get like a 45 with 3D for like $525. It's like get the fucking inches. And I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like, and that has made
Yeah.
the size made me. My mom bought a 3D TV by accident. She went to go buy a TV and it just came with the shit.
Yeah.
Yep,
And so it's like the
that'll
one or
happen.
two times where when I wanted to watch Saw 3D, like I went to my mom's house and did it, and never bothered with it on my TV because I was much happier to have this the general size. And I think that's going to be even more pronounced this generation where it's like, look. Either you're going to get 4K by accident just because all the TVs are going to convert to that in the next 2 years as they start to hit the low end of right now, if you buy any TV that's 400 or above, you're just going to get 4K with it, like it's just built in. But it's not in that like TCL like $200 $300 TVs.
I need a TV.
Like the more
my
budget
TV
stuff.
broke. I don't have money.
And you can still get big ones, right? Like you go to a Costco and it's like they're selling. It starts with an H. I don't know what this brand is. It's relatively new, but like they were selling a 50-inch TV for $240, and I was like, why would you just get that shit?
Right. Well, like this is I think a lot about the Don Maddock or Matrick quote.
Don Maddock.
If I said Maddock, jeez. That's a different quote. The Don Matrick quote from when the Xbox One reveal happened, when Keighley was like, so wait a second, you always have to be on the internet for this. What about for people who don't have always on internet access? And Matrick's quote was like, oh yeah, we have a console for them. It's called the Xbox 360, which is like the shittiest quote ever. And that's like one of those things that immediately turned people against the idea of what Microsoft was trying to do with the Xbox
That was on the
One.
level of, this is not nearly as egregious, but close. The guy who's in charge of Sony now, what did he say about like old games? It was like, old video games? Who gives a Who the fuck wants to play those?
Yeah, exactly.
Now he runs PlayStation.
Yeah, God. But today, like this stuff feels like, oh yeah, we have who has a fucking 1080p TV? Oh, lots of people. Here's a console.
Most of them.
Most of them. Here is a console for $200 left for those people. Let's actually try to work with them.
I've been thinking so much about which one of these two boxes I'm going to buy because I've realized quite aggressively that there's absolutely nothing that the PS5 can be that will beat the price points and the offers that you get with either of these two other consoles, and it's just like. I mean, why would I not get the one that's $299?
Right.
Why would you ever not get the one that's $299?
For me, it's like I'm actually thinking about this because Lord knows they're not going to send us like a lot of Xboxes when it's Xbox review season. So it's like, okay, I'm going to have to buy one of these. Should I just get on this payment plan thing? Because frankly, dropping $35 a month is easier for me than dropping $500 all at once, especially if I'm going to get Ultimate Game Pass and other stuff.
You get Ultimate Game Pass, which then also includes xCloud.
And EA Play now is the other thing.
And EA Play.
Every single person on my timeline was just saying, like, with Game Pass, this shit is like an unbelievable deal. So many people like in my life are service workers and all this shit, and they just like, they want to play games, but they don't want to take this huge financial commitment that buying a new console always is. This is like an affordable plastic box with a system in which you can get games in a way where you can try them before you actually commit more money to like actually buying and owning them. I mean, we're like leasing them out. We're leasing out a digital copy basically.
I mean, but the thing I think about a lot was like, I was freelancing in the early 2010s, right? When like the PS4 came out, and I spent over a year without a well over a year without a PS4, but I just couldn't do reviews of those games. You could not tap me in to do a review for any PS4 game or Xbox One games. I didn't have either of those consoles. I couldn't afford either one of those consoles. I ended up just blowing an entire check on a PS4, I've said this before, to review Battlefield Hardline because EA sent me a PS4 copy instead of a PC code. And I was like, well, I guess I have to go to make this deadline.
Oh no.
I have to go into my savings, go buy a PS4. So that was the first game I played on PS4.
Oh,
Loved
great.
it. So that was like in 2015. So, that console came out in 2013. It was over a year before I was, but if there had been a thing where it's like, oh yeah, you can, pay this off over the course of 2 years, I could have afforded $25 a month. I could not have afforded $500, $300 all at once.
It's pretty similar to Apple's payment plan they used to have. When I bought my first iMac, it was actually on a payment plan where they They basically gave you a line of credit and then you just paid it off like a line of credit. And
Right.
you could make a mistake and use that credit card, which you shouldn't do, but
Right.
you could just pay it off. Like my brother bought a computer from Apple through that way. And it, if you, like all payment plans, if you pay attention to the fine print and pay everything on time, it works out just fine for you.
Right.
If you don't, and that's what they're counting on, then it won't.
Then it won't.
It will work
That's
off badly
that's
for
what
you.
they'll get you.
Yeah, it should be clear. Like they're like like as much as it may like if you're on top of things, like this can work out well for you. But the moment you like fall off the track, like that, they make their money somewhere, and so you always have to make sure. Like one, it's like if you're on this payment plan and then you suddenly say, "Well, I've lost my job. This $35 is the difference between like putting food on my table and not." Well, like the Xbox goes away.
Yeah, 100%. Yes.
Like you don't get. It's not like you just got to put it in the closet. Like, well, I'll pick up that payment plan later. Like I presume it's like no. Like we're gonna send you a box and you're gonna send this back. You can send that Xbox back.
Yeah.
The thing that is probably worth pausing and saying here is like I am from a pure like I'm a person going about my life in the world perspective. I think all of this stuff is very enticing to me. But I'm also, as like a critic, I know that when I'm being enticed, something is happening. And in this case, it means it's Microsoft pushing to the shift towards a model that is, platforms and services and ongoing subscriptions. And I don't know what that leads to in the long run, right? The classic thing the classic quote I always bring up in situations like this is the Paul Virilio, when you invent a ship, you invent a shipwreck analogy, right? That like when you invent electricity, you invent the electric chair. There was a quote going around from Frederick Pohl, who's a science fiction writer this week that was similar, and that was like, good science fiction shouldn't be able to anticipate the car. It should be able to anticipate the traffic jam, which is fucking that is like, that is the sci-fi I like. You're right. And I don't know what the traffic jam of this Switch is. I don't know what the unintended or the intended but obscured consequences are for pushing this shift so hard. And that does not mean the model we have now is good. I mean, and that's part of why I'm able to be enticed, because I look at the model we have now and I don't think it's good.
Alternative to this feels exciting because we don't have any vision of what it would be like to have a video game economy that is more affordable and more accessible.
And
we just don't.
Is more like
and
the
it's
Netflix
not everyone
model.
either, right? Like
Totally.
if you look at this model and go, it makes me feel weird. I want to own discs. I want a company that's going a different direction. Like by all accounts, like Sony isn't pushing very hard in this direction. Nintendo is never like they're not going to do a subscription service. They would like you to pay $60 for every one of their games, especially their re-releases. So
and then $80 for all the Joy-Cons that you have to buy.
Yeah. Oh my god. Oh man. So I had Joy-Con drift like a month and a half ago, and I kept just like pushing through it and being like, I'm good. It's fine that I'm missing these jumps. Like, tried like spraying it, into the Joy. I looked up different tutorials. Yeah. Like tried to look up different options, and then I was like, well, you know what? Fine. Like maybe I'll just buy some cool Joy-Con colors. Like I've just got these gray ones, and that'll be fine. No, these Joy-Cons are expensive.
They're expensive, dude.
Shit is expensive.
$80.
Shit is pricey, and they have
Shit
not
is
dropped
pricey.
it all, and everyone knows that they're garbage, and yet here we are.
So instead I cashed in on my own reporting of they'll just repair it for free and just set my Joy-Cons in and got them back 2 weeks later.
Good. So yeah, the thing for me ends up being like, well, what does this long term do if this takes off, right? If their play is correct, right? And I think as the days
and what if
have
everyone
continued,
moves in that direction?
Yes,
right. Nintendo can always be an outlier because they're Nintendo,
right?
But it wouldn't be shocking if like midstream through the PS5,
Sony
goes like, shit, like we kind of need to follow in a similar direction too,
right?
And that if an industry shifted to subscription, if you can objectively look at how Netflix has changed. To create the creation of television shows. Like that took a long time. It's not something that happened overnight, but over the course of the last the course of the last 10 years, like they have creatively changed how not just how shows are distributed, but how shows are created. And Gita, you can probably elaborate.
like remember when shows used to run until they reached syndication? When that was the goal for every television show? Do you remember television shows being longer than 2 seasons or 3 seasons?
Right.
Television shows used to reach 5, 7 seasons, and that was the goal. The goal was to make enough television so that you could air each episode randomly and syndicate them out to other networks.
Right.
Now
On
it doesn't
TBS.
matter
You
at
want to
all.
be on TBS.
Yes, you want to make it on the
Well, like,
TBS. Turner
I
will
mean, we
give
were
you
talking
money
about
forever.
this.
Yes.
Me and David were talking about this, like, you know, as we do, just get really high on the Sabbath and just talk about
There you
prestige
go.
television. But we were talking about, like, you know, when did prestige television, when did that become the only model of TV? Because you see people like watch Lovecraft Country and they're like, oh, a return of a Monster of the Week format? That's fucking crazy. You're like, no, that used to be the default. That used to be, Battlestar Galactica is like one of the most acclaimed television shows of the sort of the modern era, but it's like halfway between prestige and syndication. You can see them pushing the concept of the show in random directions because they're not trying to tell a narrative arc that's complete. They're trying to go as long as they can so that the show can enter syndication and just run on reruns and make $1 million. Just playing on reruns.
Right.
And
Back
that doesn't happen anymore.
back when seasons were also like 20, like
26
Lost,
episodes.
Battlestar were 24, 26 episodes, which is not.
That's a lot of episodes.
That's something I don't miss. Like I think there's been
Yeah.
a lot of terrible things about
Yeah.
the Netflixication of like the television model, but also
I don't
like
know. I've
shows
been
being
watching-
8 or
That's how you get to syndication. You get 100 episodes, right? So you do
Yeah.
5
Yeah.
200 or 20 episode seasons, and you're there,
Yeah.
and that's the rush.
No, I've been watching this old show with Dave. I've talked about this a million times, but it's so good. Actually, you would both love it. It's called Lou Grant. And yes, Lou Grant from the Mary Tyler Moore Show. But he moved to Los Angeles and became the managing editor of a competitor to the Los Angeles Times.
Okay.
And it's just like a procedural about journalism. It's trying to cash in on all the President's Men. And it's just like, it's got all the personalities down. And there's a plucky and incredibly professional female reporter that has to deal with all of her sexist, like, male friends at work shit. There's the guy that looks like he's never showered in his life and it's hunched over like this and is always angry. At one episode, he tells Lou Grant that he'll post up at the bar where he's going to have dinner with his family because he can't wait for Lou Grant to read his draft. And it's got a photographer that is lackadaisical. It's just issues of journalism.
And they made 114 episodes of this television show.
Yeah.
How was that possible? Where you could say, like, there was just a show you've never
22
heard
minutes.
of that you didn't
it's
even know
fantastic.
existed. And they made
Like,
114 episodes.
Actually, something very comforting about it's all on YouTube. So me and David just go and watch a random episode, basically once a week at least. You know, we're just feeling like chilling out, not really paying attention to anything. That experience of television does not exist anymore, except in reality TV, and where the conditions are that you can make episodes that many episodes that cheaply.
That cheaply, right?
Yes.
I mean, there is still like multicam scripted TV. It's just much rarer, right? Like,
Yes.
I guess like
CBS.
was like
Or
Big
like
Bang
what
Theory the
Netflix's,
last big one.
Big Bang Theory was the last big one, and it's over.
Right. And Young Sheldon is a single camera.
Yeah.
Like I'm guessing that's still episodic and not serialized, but that's.
But it's closer to
I'll never
Everybody
find
Hates
out.
Chris in tone, I think.
I'll never find out, but I'll never watch that
No.
fucking show. So, God, we can't.
I don't know
give
why
Zunga.
Everybody Hates Chris was my reference point for
No,
what that show was. But
no, I'm with you. I think I haven't seen this show, but I did watch Everyone Hates Chris, and
Everybody Hates Chris.
Everybody
that was
Hates Chris was totally
low key.
fine.
That first season was good.
Yeah, I haven't seen it
Blackish,
since it
that
came
show's
out.
also right.
But
Yeah, I mean, my
anyway,
memories of that first season
the
are
thing,
fire.
the question there ends up being, is that because again, those shows do exist. Like Patrick, you started to say that those shows do also exist on Netflix. They just don't last very many seasons. That kind of multicam.
Well,
sitcom
it depends,
show,
right? Like, so
right?
you have like a Netflix doing shows like The Ranch, which is like specifically was developed by the guy who does a bunch of the CBS like those like sitcom-y shows. So I don't know. Like, will that become the case where we look back in 10 years and like certain models of games we get nostalgic for, and then you can like play on that by doing this? I don't even know what that'll mean.
Right.
But
Right.
like, we're just at the beginnings of like fundamental shifts to distribution funding. Like, this will change how games are funded, how they are like monetized and conceived. There are ways you can imagine that being a good thing. There are ways you can imagine or not imagine that being a bad thing. Like a lot of it's kind of up in
and there are lots of ways in
air.
which we can't imagine it because we haven't thought through what the repercussions are.
Or people don't know
benefit.
yet.
We don't know, right? We just don't. There are things we cannot see. But it is
the TV analogy back briefly.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the benefits of prestige television, this model, shorter seasons, smaller amount of seasons, stories that are complete stories that go from beginning, middle, and end. Actors get to work on a lot more shit,
right?
And they get to get a lot more work,
right?
That also means a downside is you can't just work in TV and have a steady job anymore,
right? And you can't just do the thing of like, well, my shit hit syndication. This is a check for the rest of my life because TBS is going to pick this up and run this for 20 years, and every time they run it, I get a few bucks or a few cents, and that
so
adds
there's
up.
Now actors can move from TV to movies and TV to movies and back, and they can do a lot of different kinds of projects. Exciting, but it sucks that like now it's like every actor's a gig worker.
Right.
Yeah.
But like and this is the thing that's like so hard to push back against a change like this, or to say, well, why would I want to push back? Here's a list of games we've covered in the last couple of weeks or months on Waypoint that are on Game Pass right now. Tell me why. Star Renegades, which we'll talk about more today. Crusader Kings III, Wasteland 3, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit today. Spiritfarer, Microsoft Flight Simulator. That's just on the first page of recent releases.
That's a lot of ass games.
Those are a lot of fucking
games.
games.
These gets are good.
Those gets are good.
Yeah.
And it's hard from I remember what it was like when I didn't have the ability, people weren't sending me codes to cover stuff, right? Like, because that could be me again in a second. If I stepped away.
Well, even if you were like a burgeoning critic.
That's what I'm saying.
The opportunity to have access.
Are you kidding me?
$35 a month for like, I can play not everything, but you would all of a sudden be able to write about the new Halo, the new Gears of War. You could pitch against brand new games where lots of folks that are quote unquote normal critics like are getting that stuff at the the same time as you. Like but this is where they get you, right? Like this is where you get the allure happens, and
exactly
because we don't know, and even Microsoft, maybe they have their hypotheticals, but it's hard to know where the cracks in this will form, because they will form, because none of these are going to be perfect or ideal, but it's still in my heart of hearts, even though I'm fortunate enough to not be in a position where I have to like pit between that stuff anymore. I'm not gonna knock anybody being like, you know what, like this makes the most sense for me economically, especially in the middle of a fucking pandemic, when if games are your primary outlet for mental health, for just getting away from things, for relaxing, like paying $35 a month to get access to basically tens of thousands of dollars of video games, not for quote unquote free. It's not free, but it sure feels free when it's $35 instead of $60 a pop for a game you're not sure if you're going to like again, because refunding games is different across every service, and who knows how easy it's going to be. That's just that's hard. It's hard to argue with, even as I can
also,
sit
as
and
a gift,
I see a lot of the arguments on Twitter of like, why this is a capital B bad. I was like, I agree, but boy, I'm gonna have trouble telling anyone to not do it.
Imagine
the big question marks for me are just like, how do these? I know a lot of people who are trying Crusader Kings III on Game Pass because they aren't sure if they're going to like it, and I love that they're able to do that, because this isn't a game for everyone, and I think more people are trying it because it's on Game Pass, just anecdotally. What does this look like for Paradox if they're making a huge amount of sales?
Right,
through
we have no
Game
idea.
Pass.
Right,
we have no idea
what the there has not been much transparency in what a Game Pass deal looks like. We don't know if it looks like an Apple Arcade deal where we believe that it's like cash up front.
Well, no, I can tell you.
Right?
The Game Pass and like PS Now's or PS Plus, like those, from what I understand, are like different per developer. And people generally seem to be happy with their Game Pass deals, but again, there's no transparency. Like, what does that mean? Like, when I click a game and I play it for an hour, should I have just gone and where do you feel ethically as the consumer, as the player, vis-a-vis how you're contributing to the economics of the folks that made that game? My understanding I think this is true of all Apple Arcade games. I reserve the right to be wrong, but from the developers I've spoken to, they're largely just a publisher. They are just handing out money for games to be either that they're funding from the start, or like it comes along at a certain part of development and then they fund the rest of it. And there's a reason you see sort of like a pipeline of game comes out in Apple Arcade and has either a 6-month or a year-long exclusivity window. So like Grindstone and some other games are coming to Switch a year later. Some other games are coming 6 months later because that's just kind of how they're set up. Right. So it's like when you click a game on Apple Arcade and you play for an hour and you don't like it, like Apple just makes that $5 a month, and that is like no skin off the back of the developer. Like they've already gotten their cut from how Apple pays and compensates them as a developer. But that is different on Game Pass and PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now. And yeah, it is hard to tell. You see success stories like a Fall Guys or Rocket League, which are like held up as games that wouldn't have been nearly as successful without those partnerships on a thing like PlayStation Plus. But does that create a perception that, it's always good that if a game is on here? I don't know.
Right. Well,
if
those
that's the case.
Those are interesting cases specifically because people have said with Xbox Game Pass that it's similar, that it's a lump sum. I've seen quotes out there from certain devs. Who knows if that's universal or if that's a per basis thing. And I believe that was the case with Rocket League, that they got a lump sum. Here's the thing that both Rocket League and Fall Guys both have: microtransactions. Other ways for the developers to turn on a money faucet and actually continue to get money to do development after that lump sum is paid. And that means that this is potentially one of the things that we'll see increasingly as this model gets adapted, is other ways for players to pay money to the developer after they get the game in whatever their monthly subscription service is. And that's, you tell me if that's a thing.
You can buy the game outside of that,
of
right?
Course.
So the Game Pass isn't,
yes.
So like an Apple Arcade, none of those games are ever going to disappear.
Right.
They're just making a library that gets bigger and bigger over time.
Right.
Whereas Game Pass is more like a Netflix or a Hulu, in which games disappear. Microsoft's games aren't going to disappear, but
third-party ones do.
But third-party games do cycle in and out, and so crucially, what's different with Game Pass is that like you can still go buy Crusader Kings on Steam.
Yes.
You can still go buy Crusader Kings on GOG. It doesn't just exist there. Even Gears of War 5, like you could just go get that instead of paying for Game Pass.
Right.
It feels more likely that we weren't going to run into like a PT scenario, but there's something lurking. Like I can't get that out of my head, Like I can't stop thinking about how that game was available and then suddenly it was not, Like it was a thing that existed and it didn't. Yeah.
I gave my base PS5 to a friend when I got a Pro and was just like, by the way, like this is the one thing you need to pay attention to. Don't delete this thing in this thing called PT.
Yeah.
You just don't delete that. You can do whatever else you want to this fucking machine, but just don't delete that thing. Because once it's gone, it's gone.
Right.
Although I guess at this point, there's like 1,000 like
PT,
Unreal Engine 4 remakes of it.
Dreams,
that basically
load up dreams, find yourself PT dreams. Underscoring all or underlining all of this stuff is what we started off with the S versus X thing, which is like also all of the stuff we're talking about the focus on services, about Game Pass, about other subscription stuff. That all requires you to have a pretty high-speed internet connection where you can comfortably download games regularly and not worry about hitting your data cap, not worry about it coming in too slow, etc. So it's like, again, like if you are still running off of disks because you're in a part of the world where the internet is slow, none of this shit matters to you. This doesn't move the needle at fucking all.
Honestly, my boyfriend still buys discs because we have Spectrum and our internet craps out at random times for hours.
Mine died last night for no reason for 3 hours in the middle of working. I loved it. It was so good. I loved it. So so that was the kind of big Xbox stuff this week. We're getting there. You know what I mean? When's the release date? What are they saying?
November 10th, the same day as Destiny happening.
I think. And Assassin's Creed. Oh, go ahead, Gita.
Well, I'm sorry. All I can think about is the meme going around of Sony be like, please don't say damn when you hear the price.
Well, so good because we're gonna get that soon.
I thought it might be yesterday because it was the 25th anniversary of the PlayStation 1 launching in North America. And they've already put out told select PlayStation insiders or whatever, they've sent emails being like, get ready to pre-order. And then there was that leak about this gold-plated fucking PS5 that they're making, which the one takeaway from that seems to be that there's a $100 difference between the gold-plated PS5 without a disc, which would suggest there will be $100 difference between.
Some accountants are racking up those numbers right now, seeing how much of a difference it can make.
That's so funny.
God.
So I don't know. I more people than I have no inside information on the PS5 price. Like prices are kept like so.
Rubbing my hands together like Birdman. As
I know,
Patrick
man. I made a
seeds
joke on
the
Twitter
internet.
about like I wouldn't be shocked if it was $600, and they had to be like immediately follow with that tweet like I am not. I do not know, and I understand when I say I do not know. Then some people will be like, yeah, that's what a fucking
he
someone knows
Yeah.
would say.
That's what he knows.
I do not know, but I, if it was gonna be cheap, I think they would have said by now.
Yeah.
And I think they might get scared off from $600, which is probably what in their heart of hearts they want to charge for this, like $600 for the big boy, and then $500 for the discless. But
There's
I don't.
no number that can compete with the deal that the Xbox is offering. I just don't.
Which
think there is.
maybe is then the argument just to say, fuck you, our software is that good. We're just going to charge $600. And
It's the gamer's bucks.
The Chad Warden argument of they don't got no games. The classic.
Man, they're gonna have if according to the Korean ratings board, and when they rate a game, that means that it's coming out soon. That means Demon's Souls is probably a
This
launch
year,
game.
right,
And
right.
and
that's not coming out on
$600 to play Demon's Souls at launch.
Sony
Big pointy fingers.
I do tend to like the games that they get as exclusive. It's just like I can't figure out how to fucking cancel this one subscription box I've been trying to cancel, and I keep fucking overdrafting my bank account. I don't need to spend $600 on a plastic box. I got a PC.
Who do we have to call to get you off that subscription box?
I don't know.
Okay, we got to figure this out.
I've been
mic.
trying. I swear. It's been 3 months.
Gita,
since I've tried to cancel it.
You know the folks that reply all. Like, that's what they do.
This is what
you
they
just
do.
need to
Oh my
tell
God.
them about
Alex.
your subscription.
Please help me. Okay, so you can't cancel it if you have a box on the way, and I just keep forgetting if it's coming on the way. But then also when you don't have a box on the way,
bullshit. I don't. You
used to be able to just cancel it online, but then during the pandemic they changed it to their customer service line only, which is only open from like 8 to 8 on weekdays. Of
course, yeah,
not holidays.
They should. I mean, that would be like if I was trying to cancel my TV service, and they were like, "Oh, we can't do it. You're watching TV right now. We can't cancel it. Sorry." And I'm like, I turned it off.
Don't
like,
send me another box after this. Shouldn't be hard.
Right. Just don't. Right. Exactly. Just stop it after this one. Anyway.
Just quit it. I don't want to spend $40 on this shit. I don't want it.
Damn. We should take a break. One more little news drop, important to me. Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity. I'm all the way here for it.
Yeah.
Hey, this looks.
I need the lore. I need the lore.
One of my favorite lines from that announcement was them be like, this time the Zelda team worked closely in collaboration, which was like, wow, basically like, no, fuck that non-canon bullshit last time. You care about this world as we quietly delay Breath of the Wild 2 to holiday 2021.
Yep.
Then you're gonna want to play this game November 20th or whenever it comes out.
Yeah, I saw this trailer. I was like, oh, this would be like February, and then they were like November. I was like, yes, hell yeah, one day after Cyberpunk.
Well,
this is the real shit. Fuck a Cyberpunk.
Fuck a cyberpunk.
Fuck a Cyberpunk. This fits that like there multiple sort of like folks in competing with Nintendo were saying like, yeah, this is it. Like you get Mario, you get that game in November, and Nintendo's washing their hands until next year.
I have not played a Dynasty Warriors game that I liked in a while now. Dynasty Warriors 9 was such a disappointment that my heart was ruined.
Yeah, you did not like that game.
That game
I remember
was
that.
fucking bad. This looks dope, and I love it was one of those things where I remember I think I brought this up a few weeks ago.
Is this Team Ninja? Did they make
I
that?
fucking hope not. I hope it's not. So
didn't they make the last one?
I don't want to talk about Team fucking Ninja. Omega Force.
I am sorry.
Omega Force, who has made the Dynasty Warriors games, they're a division of Koei Tecmo for decades, have made some of my favorite games. And then, yes, Team Ninja got involved at a certain point, and they have done the Team Ninja Dynasty Warriors games have not been my favorite, is what I would say, or the ones where they have had. And to be clear, I don't want to say Omega Force has never fucked up. Dynasty Warriors 9 was mostly Omega Force, I believe. But just in general, I would prefer
Team Ninja is listed as a developer.
Fuck off.
Well, that's Hyrule Warriors.
That's the original Hyrule Warriors. Right. That's different.
Yeah. So I'm trying to pull up the.
In any case,
We're doing journalism live.
In any case,
this is Omega Force.
Produced by Omega Force.
Yeah, we're good. It's gonna be fine. I think it's gonna be good. I hope it's not bad. And the thing I was gonna say was I think I brought it up on here a couple of weeks ago that like there are days when I feel like bad and numb and like disconnected from the world because I don't get. I think it was on the DC fandom stuff where it's like I just don't get that like youthful, energetic excitement about 99% of things. It turns out Breath of the Wild is the 1% of things that like, oh shit, chills down the back of my spine as the music starts playing, as the characters come on screen, as like they start doing wild ass attacks. Like, oh wow, I guess this game really fucking worked for me. Like I was pretty sure it did, but now like, oh yeah, I'm bought in a way that's excited. And so yeah, November 20th, right? So, you need some.
Austin Walker's gonna eat.
I'm a feast on some Hyrule Warriors. All the Guardians are there, and you know it's gonna go bad. You know how that story ends. That is my shit. Let's go. All those motherfuckers are gonna
trilogy.
Die.
Essentially.
It's gonna be a tragic ending for all these motherfuckers. I want to play a Dynasty Warriors game where 1,000 people kill you. Cannot wait.
Didn't it feel good for a second when Urbosa was trending too?
Yes.
Didn't that feel great?
Yes, that felt
just
good.
For like the 1.5 hour
queen.
Urbosa was trending. Yes. Finally, we understand.
God. Anyway.
Gotta have a cooking mechanic, right?
I hope it
Urbosa
does.
is the
God.
stallion.
I'm very curious to see what the structure of that game is, and if it's just a Dynasty Warriors like mission to mission based thing, or if there's a campaign.
How much story is there? Because that's what I would be there for. Like these games have never done anything for me, but.
I'm interested
I don't dislike playing. Like when I've played it, I'm like, yeah, this is fine. Yeah. But like none of the settings or like have been my thing. Yeah. But
this would be.
I would absolutely
well
love to. Yeah. So I'm curious to see how much.
This is
there.
My biggest question. Very much is so that last Dynasty Warriors game, Dynasty Warriors 9, was a big open world game, and I'm like, and it was bad. They did not do well by that. And I can't help but wonder, are they going to do stuff like that again? Or are they going to do the Hyrule Warriors thing where it is just like discrete maps? Or the previous Dynasty Warriors game thing of just here's a discrete map, you have a fight on the map, there's story drops, there's whatever, and then you move on. We'll see. I want to know more about that game.
September 26th, you'll know more.
Oh, is that when they're doing like an additional details? Okay, that makes
like
sense. They'll do like a gameplay direct. Yeah. Okay.
Last thing before we bounce out of here for the break is I finished Blasphemous.
Cool.
A couple days back. Really fucking great game. Cannot recommend it enough. It feels like for 2020 is my Valfaris. Valfaris was a action shooter game from last year that was like had very Contra. Sort of vibes. It was just like really hard but really satisfying. And Blasphemous is absolutely like that game for me this year. I mean, I was putting off finishing it. I was like, I'll just like eke out like another % in the map. I don't need any of these upgrades anymore. But going from 95% to 96 is satisfying in its own way. Just one of those games where you're just delaying finishing it because I don't want it to end. And it's just rare that you get games, especially for me, who's just like finish it, move on to the next one is very much my attitude. But I delayed on this one, and like it was all the more satisfying to get to the end, beat it, and get the bad ending. Like I played 96% of this game and still got looked up how to get the good ending and was like, man, all right, well, you took something from Dark Souls. It's like, here was the obscure quest that I had no idea how to do, and so I get the shitty ending. And that was satisfying in its own right. So they took away the right things from that franchise. So Blasphemous is good, and more people should go and play it. Yeah.
Cool. Well, it is on my list of things to check out before the end of the year. So, I'm glad it's good. I'm glad that it has.
Yeah, I'm playing Spanish. The Spanish VO is.
That's what you've said. That interview is up on the site, right? You talked to them about that?
Yes.
All right. Well, we should take a break. When we come back, we will talk about some video games, including Star Renegade, Crusader Kings III. I have a Crusader Kings III story that I have to tell that I'm very, very excited to tell. I've not played the game this week since this stuff happened, so I wouldn't forget it. I wouldn't be overwritten with more Crusader Kings 3 stuff. And Paradise Killer, so stick around. We'll be right back. All right, we are back, and there are games we've not talked about too much here. I guess here's the thing that I'll say. The stuff that we have left to talk about is stuff we have talked about before, so I don't feel too bad highlighting Crusader Kings first. Also because, like I said, this Crusader Kings thing happened, I was like, man, I fucking love this game. And, like, you were right, they made a good one. Like, they did it.
Yeah.
They did the damn thing.
They fucking nailed it, you know?
So, I need to tell you about Conrad, who I guess let me send you an image of what Conrad looked like. Duke Conrad, by the end of his life. He looked like this guy. This is him. Well, the thing is, I don't know if it's him, because one of the things that happens when you bring up the screen that is like your character screen in the Crusader Kings, it says underneath, like, this is you. But in my case, it started saying, this is you, allegedly, because this was like a Man in the Iron Mask, or what is the king's name? Baldwin from Kingdom of Heaven, kind of has like the thing that a lot of European kings wore. I guess I don't know if it was a lot, but enough for this to be a touchstone in modern adaptations in film and media, where he was wearing like a mask to cover up a disfigurement that he received from either from war or illness or whatever. A quote-unquote disfigurement.
Incredibly fucking sick.
It looks incredibly sick. It's like a death mask style, like facial mold.
It's a solid silver mask. The first time I saw it in the game, I was like, I want to be that guy. I want to be his friend.
I want to be his friend. So this is Duke Conrad. And I think before I tell you about Duke Conrad, I have to tell you about his father, because there's a certain sort of... There are ways in which... everything about Conrad is a reflection or best understood by his father. For people who don't know anything about Crusader Kings because you skipped our Crusader Kings talk last time, or you've always bounced off of it, please listen to this one story I have to tell. And also, let me just give you the very high level, because we kind of jumped into it last time in a way where, like, we didn't say maybe what the game is so much. You play as a dynasty of people in the Middle Ages, and you're trying to extend your dynasty and your dynasty's power. And to do that, you inhabit the head of the dynasty at any given time. And that dynasty can be really big, like an emperor, or it can be really tiny, like a count. And a count just has a county. Like, you know how you live in a county somewhere? That's the person who's in charge of that. And not like 3 counties around them, not the state or the country that they're in. It's very, it's very small. So, and you're making decisions as you go, and all the characters have stats. It's very much an RPG in a way that even, I think this game specifically, even more so than the previous one. So, there's this guy who I'm playing as named Eberhard of Strasbourg. Eberhard is, I'd say, a distinctly kind man. This is who he is, down to the fact that right before he dies, he completes their skill trees in this game. He completes the last diplomacy tree and gets to choose a nickname. The nickname I get to choose for him include the kind, and so I give it to him. When I say he's kind, what I mean is that people like him. That is the thing that he is defined by. And when I say people, what I mean is like people including the Pope. He was like the Pope's best friend.
Oh,
right?
wow.
I got events called like the Twin Suns because our radiant conversation shone so brightly.
That's so beautiful.
And let me tell you, you can get some shit when the Pope is your best fucking friend. Like literally plus 100 with the Pope, not plus 30 with the Pope.
What?
Plus 100.
That's max, right?
You love to
That's
see it.
max. And again,
I actually love to see it.
I'm not some king. I'm like a little count. I have nothing. I'm playing in Strasbourg, which is a county on what we would contemporarily think of as the German and French border. And the reason I'm doing this is deeply sentimental, which is my mom's side, I guess my grandfather on my mom's side of the family is German. Came here in early Revolutionary era America, maybe after that, but pre 20th century. And were originally from the Alsace region in Germany, France, which has kind of gone back and forth over the years in terms of who controls it. Now it's France. And I last year when I was playing Crusader Kings II in anticipation of this, I was like, I should just find where that part of my family is from. I cannot do that for the black side of my family. I may as well do it for the German side of my family. And so I found the castle that is where that side of my family's name is from, in the mountains of France. And found, and you know, on Sunday or whatever it was, when I was playing Monday, because I was on Labor Day, I was like, I'm going to give all of Labor Day to Crusader Kings. I'm going to find that place on the map in the first save that I can go back to in Crusader Kings 3, and I'm going to play from there. Ironically, I can't because it is impassable terrain on the map because it's like a mountain castle, and you cannot play from this impassable terrain. So I went to Strasbourg, which is right next door to it. And it's a nothing county. I'm making no money, but everyone loves me because my dude is just that diplomatic. It's just like from the gate is like when I take him over, he's already completed one full skill tree of the family hierarchy, like, skill trees. So like basically he's like thought of as just like a good dad. He's basically just a good dad. And so I thought my children will end up being very good, right? Good dad, probably
That's
have good
what you
kids.
assume, right?
This is what you assume. Unfortunately, he was Conrad, my son, my heir, was good in many ways. Mostly, he was brilliant. He had like a 29 in learning by the time he died, which, spoilers, this is eventually going to end in Conrad dying. But he was not a good person. He was like his father. You know, he was brave in certain ways, but he was also sadistic, and I want to say he was cynical too. Which means that he like doesn't really care about he wasn't cynical because he was so good at learning. In any case, he was like this dark reflection of his father, which is to say everyone fucking hated him. But unlike his father, he was committed to being ambitious despite that. In Crusader Kings, especially depending on the way your inheritance stuff works, if your goal is to grow what you control, you are competing against a clock, and that clock is your death. Because in certain sorts of inheritance laws, you lose the stuff that you have at a certain point. So, like, let's say you control 5 counties, right? You don't have a duchy, you don't have a kingdom, you just have 5 random counties spread out around the world. Guess what? Because of the inheritance laws where you are, your 3 kids are going to cut those up and each one is going to get something, right? You're going to die, your will is going to be read, and on that will, it's going to say, Jimmy gets this, Betsy gets that, and Duke Conrad gets this 3rd thing. He wouldn't have been Duke Conrad at this point, otherwise this wouldn't have been a problem. One of the ways you beat that is if in your life you can either change those succession laws, which is very hard, or you get something that is a whole thing that is bigger than a county, right? Because again, I'm starting to play as a count here, which is like a stupid thing to do in some ways, but I wanted to see what that felt like. So I go, okay, I'm going to, with Eberhard, I'm going to try to get to a duchy so that I can give my kid a duchy. I can't do it. He's very nice, but he's not very good at anything other than marrying his kids off and making alliances through being very nice. But that means that when Conrad, this sadistic motherfucker, takes over, he can kind of build off of his father's kindness, cash in old favors. All of his siblings are married off strategically, and he can start to do what his father couldn't, which was build something that would last more than a lifetime.
Yeah.
Except there is one problem,
Wait.
which is, what's up, Cado?
I just had a question about,
Yes.
do you choose which of your offspring you play as, or is that part
No.
of the succession laws?
It's part of succession laws. I think it's
Okay.
whoever gets the bulk of what you get. And I think in
Gotcha.
the place that I am, the cultural like law is it's your firstborn male son. Preference. If you only have a daughter where I'm at, I think you would play as the daughter. Your stuff isn't stripped, but it's it is still male preference, and that stuff that can all be changed both at the grand scheme of things. You could just like flip a switch that says, no, I want this to be gender neutral. Or you can change that through the system of play where like you put a religion in place that is matriarchal, or you make things, you slowly change succession laws to be elective or to be, you choose who you want, stuff like that. All that stuff is gameplay.
Yeah, scenarios in which I can have a specific title that I want to be elective, or I change religion and it invalidates my marriage, so I have to have a new heir. That kind of stuff. Succession is determined by multiple different factors and can be disrupted by multiple different gameplay moves, which is super fun if you're trying to get one person to be the heir versus another.
Right. So, Count Conrad, let me just read you what happens when Count Eberhard dies. At age 70, Count Eberhard of Strasbourg rests in the arms of the Lord at 70 years of age. He died of old age. A man to always put the good of his family above all else, he spent his life trying to ensure a glorious future for all of his descendants. I'll note my prestige with this guy was through the fucking roof because I maxed out all the diplomacy trees, which just meant that everyone just loved him. It's just like he held a good party and everyone was like, this is the best party anyone has ever thrown ever. Plus 300 prestige. Just like for someone who didn't own anything, my prestige was like that of kings. Prestige being literally a resource and a stat in this game. Count Conrad, the game continues, ascends to the throne. A true sadist, many fear what the realm will turn into under his rule. Well, they should not have worried, because Count Conrad had goals and dreams. What he also has, so just like the high level on Conrad is he's brilliant. He's a philosopher. He's like a level 4 philosopher, which means his learning is through the roof. And that means that he kind of thinks he's better than the church, which means he gets into stuff like magic and witchcraft and herbalism very quickly. Most of that doesn't really come into play, except that it means I'm able to get certain perks like herbalism, which keeps you healthy, and whole of body, which keeps you healthy. And those are important because about 20 years into my reign, he gets cancer. And that to me was the thing. That was the point at which I was like, oh shit, am I going to lose this guy? The clock is ticking. If he can beat this, then I'm confident he can conquer the world, or at least the nearby counties. And so
that caveat's so great.
Getting cancer for him, cancer is bad. Cancer is straight up like, you lose, first of all, you have cancer, which means you're dying. And as someone who's lost people to cancer, including the grandfather whose family is from this region of Europe, it sucks. And seeing someone go through that is really hard. But Duke Conrad had specifically been built, and at that point I started leaning into taking all of the skills in the skill tree that were about being able to fight this off, and also recruiting the best possible like people from around the world that were like physicians and other people who do work for me, just like cashing in all of these old favors. I should note, Gita, we were talking about whether or not there were Jews in this game a few episodes ago. The Eberhard, the good, the nice count, his physician and steward was an Ashkenazi Jew who was brilliant, incredible. Like he was just like in my court at the top of the game, and the first thing I did was if you want to invite someone who's visiting your court but isn't like a permanent member, you have to pay them, right? You got to be like, listen, I'm going to pay you to hang out because you're cool enough to where I want you to be a knight or a physician or just chill. I just want you to be at the parties, be my guy. You're welcome to the entourage.
Invite people with good congenital traits just because they might have babies, and then I can have babies with their babies.
Totally, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I started building out Conrad to be this style of like, he's like literally fighting the cancer by being the healthiest man in the world. He's just like on that treadmill every day. He's eating all of his vitamins. He's studying, illicit religious, rituals that theoretically will help extend his life, stuff like that. And he decides, okay, or I decide, I guess, I can find somewhere on them. I can't, because of my alliances, I can't make Alsace, which is the region I'm in, or Alsace. I never know how to pronounce this place.
I have no idea. I couldn't tell you. I'm sorry.
I can't make that duchy because my friends own the other parts of it. But what about this other place that's just kind of past the mountains where I don't know anyone there. And so over the course of the next, 20 years of this guy's life, one, he continues to just decompose as a person. The cancer eats away at him, and he starts leading battles, even though he's not particularly good at leading battles, and getting
just gets maimed,
consecutively maimed and disfigured in fights. And from every time that the cancer comes back, you get an option. It's like, how do you want to treat this? Do you want to treat this conservatively or with risk or with really wild abandon, and just do the hard, go hard at this cancer? And if it kills me, it kills me, but oh well. I had another option because my learning was so high, which was like, you should use the things that no one is allowed to use. I'm so smart that I can, this book says there's a way to do this. There's a way I can get through this, and it's even riskier. I did that every time. And so by the end of this guy's life, he was wounded, one-legged, had cancer, was wheezing all of the time, had smallpox, lived through smallpox and the bubonic plague. Both of those things hit my court, killed people, not Conrad. Conrad had a vision, and that vision was becoming a duke. And so he pushes through all of that shit, eventually taking on the mask, taking on lots and lots and lots of scars. The thing ends up saying, this is you allegedly, because you can't see his face anymore. Also, one of the things that he learned to do to make his life better was eat people. I got an event at one point that was like, you know what? There are ways to restore your stamina that people don't do because they're cowards.
Because they're cowards.
Yeah.
Cowardice definitely on my part, for sure.
And by spending all of that prestige that the kind count had raised, I just literally went into the negatives, because what I would do is I would just go to war with someone, beat them, take their shit, and then the second it was over and I recovered my troops, I'd be like, that truce we have, fuck a truce. Actually, fuck a truce. I'm coming for your shit. And literally, he becomes the Duke of Transjania, which is like to the south of this region, which is a place that I've never dealt with except to stomp on their people, inherited all their shit, made the Duke title, because the thing about this game is if you have enough stuff, if you have like, let's say you had Nassau County and Suffolk County, you could then become the Duke of Long Island, because those are the two counties that make up Long Island, right? Or if you had 5 of the counties that are in this part of in this case, in one case it was like North Burgundy, I could become the Duke of North Burgundy. And at that point you can give your title down to the next person that is the Duke title instead of the Count title. So it's like, hey, as a Count, I have these 5 counties, but as a Duke, I have this one duchy, and you can inherit this duchy and keep it all because it's a duchy, and you have other counts under you, basically. And all I can think of as this is happening is, my family must fucking hate me. My sons must fucking hate my ass because I'm not dying. I lived through 2 plagues. I lived through cancer. I fought an entire duchy. I am bleeding on my face all the time. I will not die. And I'm doing it for them. They don't understand. I'm doing it for them. But I know that my numbers are low with them because also I'm a bad dad. Unlike my dad, I'm a terrible dad. I didn't educate these people myself. I didn't look at these kids. I never spent a moment with them.
Fuck them kids.
Fuck them kids. Finally, I want to be clear. At the top of every year, I get the update that's like, you're dying. Today is this, in your heart that you're about to die. And no, he doesn't. Conrad knows today is going to be a good day. Conrad knows I'm gonna get this much closer to building a real... Also, I left out a really important part of this, which is Conrad is married off to in his childhood to the Duchess of North Burgundy, or someone who has almost has that claim. And we are both conquering in towards each other. We don't even live together. She isn't on my court because she's busy running something somewhere else, doing the same sort of schemes that I'm doing. Also, we're both cheating on each other because this is what the powerful do, and they're bad people. But we're constantly backing each other up in these wars to build something for ourselves nearby. So there's there's a side story happening here that is, I like to think of it as a really fucked up romance. In any case, finally at the age 68, I get this message after I've become the Duke. Duke Conrad of Transjania has found peace in Christ's embrace at 68 years. He died of cancer, horribly disfigured. He spent his last years unable to show his face in public. Duke Richard ascends to the throne. Being an ambitious man, many expect the realm to grow and prosper under your rule. And then the next message. Twist of fate. As I make all the preparations necessary for Duke Conrad's departure from the world, I am interrupted by a page. The boar went and died without any help from me. So, what that means is my son and heir had been plotting to kill me in the background. So my first message as my son was someone interrupting my son to tell me I was dead. Or just interrupting me to say, your dad, who you were plotting to kill, has died of cancer finally.
We can don't have to worry about the murder anymore.
don't have to
He
worry
just
about the
died
murder.
a regular way.
And it's I just love so fucking, and also this dude is just like incredible at war stuff. The third generation of this family, he was raised to be this like incredible warrior, and so he's going to be able to continue in his father's footsteps. But I love so much that. Also, I found out that the heir was also trying to kill his brother because he was afraid that the duchy, I guess, wasn't going to be formed in time. And so he was trying to kill off his brother so he would inherit even more shit, not knowing that literally a week or two before my character, Conrad died, he would make the duchy so that his son, who hated him and was trying to kill him, would be able to inherit a duchy and not just a couple of loose counties. I fucking love this game so much. It's so fucking good.
Holy shit.
I love it.
I love this fucking game. I love when that's happened to me a couple of times. I played I don't normally. So the first thing that David asked me when I showed him this game was, "How do you be good?" And I was at a loss for words because he didn't want to expand or anything. He just wanted to be like a nice guy. But it's so fucking satisfying to fill out the entire diplomacy track and just be like, "Hey, do you want to be my vassal?
Do you want to be my vassal? Hey, we can
big party over here."
Yeah, totally. Like at a certain point with the right skills, yeah, you can just totally be like, "Hey, I already own all this other stuff. You want to come be part of the stuff I own? It's pretty cool. Like, look at the other cool shit I own.
We got Disney World. All these guys are.
Yeah, exactly.
I develop all their castles, and now like they're basically impenetrable. Like, don't worry about it. You know, I have a huge army. I'll protect you.
Yeah.
That is like my favorite way, is just being like nicing everyone to death.
Yes.
But playing the guy who gets all of his enemies murdered, it is so fun when you start playing as your heir and they're like, "Whoopsie, we were trying to kill you, but you just died the normal kind."
You just regular died. Yeah, totally. The prose in this game is also just very strong.
Really good.
The one where I passed through, beat the bubonic plague, was it seems as if death passed through my door, lingered by my bedside, but in the end decided to let me live. I will never forget the torments of his touch, yet he has opened my eyes to the miracle of life. The plague has claimed many souls, but I will not be one of them. Duke Conrad, you're a fucking real one. You're also going from the count to the Duke is the thing that got me this dope new robe with like all sorts of embellishments and gold and red and a cool crown. Like that level up from looking like a monk who was wearing a cool mask to looking like a king who was wearing a cool mask was very good to me.
Nice.
So yeah, I Crusader Kings III continues to just kick ass. The Count who would never die is like one of my all-time favorite RPG characters now. And and it was like 5 hours of a day or 4 hours of a day because just like the way that Crusader Kings can tell those little stories that will stick with you and that will be unique to you in the way that you can tell it without it being a spoiler. Right? Like I didn't spoil Crusader Kings.
No.
And the story of the Count who wouldn't die. I just had the Count who wouldn't die, and you can have your own Count who won't die.
Really great story. Yeah. One small update. I did actually finally make the Jewish Empire that I wanted to. I played as a vassal of the ruler of the Khazarian Empire. Eventually, they got pressured, and I ended up educating his son and heir so that the entire Khazarian Empire became Jewish, Kabarite Jewish, and then because that's like about most of like Eastern Russia is where that place would be. That whole area became Jewish. So in between the Catholics on one side and the Orthodox Christians on the other, there's just this huge area of just consolidated Judaism that is kind of squeezing them both out. We were actually very, very close to gaining control of Jerusalem, which, I mean, would just change all of human history. So that's fascinating.
Yeah, that would be a big difference.
Get for the Jews.
This is the thing that's so weird is that, like, speaking to your conversation with David, right, of like, is there a way to play this game as a good guy? Like, no, you're a king. No, you're representing a religious faith that wants to. I mean, can you be iconoclastic?
Judaism,
Yes, you can totally create something that is like, oh, I'm going to actually reform this faith until it looks like a version of the world that I would like to be in. You could go down that road. And I've done that before in Crusader Kings 2, and it's very fun to do it. But basically every other way that you're engaging with the world means engaging with something that is historically fucked. Like wanting to reclaim a religious site for your own, for instance.
Yeah. People live there, you know?
Already. We are historically pro-Palestine on this podcast.
Yes, we are.
And
there is a Palestinian people in this game.
Absolutely.
And this is a point that I've reached in this game where it's like, am I just going to replicate history badly in a different way?
In a different way, right?
Yeah, there's straight up Palestinians. I've seen them. You can create Palestine in this game.
I think long term, I one of the things that I'm very interested in doing is seeing how far this syncretism, like the playing hard against the kind of exclusionist and closed door stuff. How far could you recreate? I think one of the things that I've seen on Twitter going around is that the likelihood of a heresy or a non-orthodox version of, not non-orthodox, but, a competing faith to rise up successfully in this game is higher than it was in CK2. In CK2, the Cathars would make some noise somewhere and you'd be like, all right, sure. But they're not going to beat the Pope. The Pope is the Pope. Whereas here it seems more likely that somewhere a new faith will rise up and will take hold, which is such a different and interesting way of depicting and thinking about history. Because in CK2, the reason that was so rare is that historically, these sorts of heresies just got put down. Maybe they lived for a couple of generations or were actually even more deeply embedded, but they never shook the power balance of the Catholic Church in the early medieval era, right? Until there was the Great Schism. But this seems to suggest, or this game seems the kind of procedural logic of this game allows for schisms to happen much earlier and to happen in different ways other than Protestantism. It's not that Protestantism is the one true schism that could have happened to the Catholic Church. It's that there could have been other religions that took place that grew into Europe, or it can be that Islam actually grows out of the south of Spain and continues to grow throughout Europe. It can be that the pagan religions of Northern Europe outlast the Catholic Church, and that stuff could have all happened in CK2, but it seemed like it was only happening if the player willed it. Whereas here, you could just open your map one day and be like, oh shit, a whole bunch of people converted to a version of Christianity I've never heard of that's all about fucking good. Weird. Yeah. That's not what I expected, but here it is.
One time, I just zoomed out in the wider map one day, and I was just like, oh, the Catharites are here.
Right.
Nice to see ya.
How you doing over there? You good? Okay. Cool. I'll be over here just chilling.
Still Jewish over here.
Yeah, right, exactly. I'm it's so good. I'm glad. It's also the sort of game that just eats my time completely. 6.5 hours just disappeared for me on Monday. I sat down after lunch and suddenly it was time for, suddenly I was late to dinner. You know what I mean? It was like,
yep.
Ooh, I should probably stop and eat dinner. This all just happened. This all just quickly blew through. So, Crusader Kings III, you're a real one. You're on Game Pass, which means people should try it. And if they like it, they like it. And if you don't, then, no worries. The other game I was playing, and I know Cado, you were dipping into this too. That was harder for me to push through because it doesn't have that same pull, but I still really, really liked, was Paradise Killer. How far into that are you, Cado?
I'm not sure. I'm playing on Switch, so I can't even look at my hour count, which is always annoying because I feel like I spent a long time in here. But I'm nowhere near figuring out the mystery, I feel like, still.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to say... You don't have a theory yet.
No. I mean,
okay.
I did just recently gain one about a certain person with an animal head. I'm thinking about movements here. But yeah, I've been enjoying it a lot. There's how do you describe how would you describe this game as far as because I keep thinking back to the only other mystery games I've played that are even similar were Phoenix Wright, but it's still such a different thing. It's
a different thing, yeah. I mean, it's sort of similar in the sense that what you're doing is getting testimony from NPCs and thinking about the ways in
evidence.
And evidence, and looking at crime scenes. But it's structurally, the thing that I compared it to, I did a tweet on Monday because we didn't have a podcast where I could talk about the game because we did the the food and bad boss email one. I said it's a mystery set on a supernatural island paradise, crafted to feel like a dying high concept mall. Demons, gods, and death. I should have actually said demons, fashion, and death, maybe, because fashion is such an important part of this game. It is Sherlock Holmes consulting detective meets a lo-fi what you won't do for love remix. This is a game with lots of like
vaporwave
80s
the island.
Yeah, it's like 80s, 90s R&B and city pop. And yeah, very vaporwave aesthetic, but like committed to it in a way that I think doesn't make it cheap, if that makes sense.
And also like with mixed in with like a bunch of Assyrian and Egyptian iconography that is different from the usual like
all sorts of Normally
vaporwave's got the the Greek statue thing going on. It's like replace all that with
there's someone with a Greek statue as a head, and he's missing. KHX, no one knows where KHX is at the start of the game. It's one of the mysteries you have to find. So it's a first person game set on an island that has like mini marts and weird supernatural kind of like power stations and high-rise condominiums and a strange temple on the top of a hill and a doctor who works out of the back of his yacht. And all of these people
that really fucking tries to put the moves on you.
He tries to put the moves on you. He's a big flirt. Dr. Doom Jazz is a big flirt. We talked about this a few months ago, partially because of just how there was a demo that dropped, and I was like, this demo is so good that I had to stop playing it.
Right.
And I stand by that. The demo is so good that I had to stop playing it. I'm glad I did, because I think this game is really, really good.
Go
ahead.
I was just gonna say I've been really I keep going back to it like every time I have like a spare moment, especially because on the Switch, I'm just like, I got like 5 minutes. Let me see who I can talk to real quick. Which is kind of not might not seem like the best way to play a game where you're kind of like trying to piece things together, but something about the constant, like having it be constantly around has kind of helped me
that makes sense
hold on to the threads, instead of doing a long sitting, which would almost make more sense. But
I was I had to push through it quickly, because if I didn't, I felt like I would lose the threads. Because it's a very high concept setting. I mean, so here's this is okay. There is an island called Paradise. Paradise Island?
Paradise. Yeah.
It's just called Paradise.
I think it's just called Paradise.
And it has had many iterations because it has been recreated every time it gets corrupted by demonic influence. This is the 24th variation on this island. The island is led by a council of people who are all immortal. Everyone here has lived not everyone here, all the immortals have lived for thousands of years. And with each new iteration, they fill the island with citizens who are kidnapped humans from our world that are brought into this metaphysical, multi-generational island that lasts for thousands and thousands of years. You are playing someone who 12 or 11 generations ago, 11 islands ago, fucked up and let a demon in and caused
3 million days.
Yeah, which is many, 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 many years. Fucked up, let a demon, was misled by a demon, was deceived by a demon, let a demon in.
Misled by a god.
Oh, was it it was a god. You're right. It wasn't a demon. The gods are also bad, but also good. You worship the gods, but you don't want to give over power to them. No. The council doesn't want to cede power to them.
They want to resurrect them, but
keep them in pyramids far away safely.
Yeah.
Anyway, I say all this because you get pulled out of you get exiled for 3 million days, and you're pulled out because the night before switching over to the next island, which is supposed to be the perfect final island, Paradise 25. All of the council gets killed while the transfer is happening, and no one knows what happened. And you were an investigator. You were the investigation freak, is what your epithet is, who could piece together any mystery. And you're brought back down to figure out what happened, figure out who killed the council, stop this transfer from happening, and bring justice to the world of Paradise. And you are exploring this world in first person, interviewing suspects. Everyone is a suspect. Meeting up with people who are your old friends, asking them questions, And all of this is done through like just a dialogue, like not a dialogue tree, but like you're going into a menu, and all of the menus in this game are like big full screen affairs. There's transition effects from walking around to talking to someone. It's not like an Oblivion style zoom into their face. It is like
everyone has their own title card.
A title card hits for every person you talk to.
Yeah.
A title card hits when you buy something from a vending machine. A title card hits when you learn a new piece of information. It is like the UI is 100% custom built for every moment in this game to feel like a capital M moment, to feel like something big is happening. And that can be... There's a lot of small things that happen where I wish that didn't necessarily happen. I don't need it every time I pick up a blood crystal, which is like the currency in this game. But it happens, and I guess I say I don't need it. But even by the end of the game, I didn't hate it. You know what I mean? It is so part of what this game is.
It just happened.
And yeah, you talk to people, you get information. That information means that you can go check out. It like tells you, oh, you should go check this out in this part of the world. Hey, yeah, I saw that there was a boat over here that night or whatever. Or gives you new topics to bring up to other people to talk to and be like, hey, I heard that you were doing this. Why didn't you tell me about that? And you can kind of just like low key hang out with people. And as you hang out with them, you get better relationships with them. And eventually they'll just tell you more because you've earned their trust. How are you? What are you thinking of it in general in terms of its ability to tell a mystery story?
Yeah, I was gonna bring up just as you were mentioning that you like get information. Like I think the web that they've created is really interesting and has enough. It has like a good amount of like layers of like given the amount of people and what other information you get, you're revisiting people often and like, sussing out all the different stories and the different like half truths that people are getting. Like that all feels really good. Like the amount of
this person had a connection to this. I didn't know about that. Let me go back through and see if that shakes anything out.
They know each other that way.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
And it works especially well with the conceit of like you've been gone for like 8,000 years or whatever. So you're also relearning like what has happened in that time span. There are certain relationships where, like, obviously your character whose name is Lady Love Dies. Is Lady her first name?
Lady's her first
name. Okay,
it's like a Lady
Gundam
situation. Yeah, it's a Gundam situation. Yes.
Your character, like, she's obviously has relationships with a bunch of these characters. They knew each other, but she's been gone for so long that things have shifted in ways that she like remarks upon finding surprising, and like there's just like a lot of interesting interpersonal stuff happening, and it all seems to kind of come in really great like waves of like, as you explore physical space and you find different things, you also have to retract to talk to people just about like evidence that you pick up or like new things that you've seen. And then also that will lead then to another conversation with a different person. Like the way it makes you bounce around the space is really fun. Like it feels like you're unraveling something.
It feels like you're unraveling stuff, you said?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like it feels like you're pulling on. Yeah, you find a thread and you're pulling on it, and like the thread will maybe like branch out at a certain point, but it really does have that sort of like, gaining little bits of information that you can then make kind of like logical leaps to like, oh, I should go talk to so and so again. Yeah, because even if the game doesn't necessarily gives you a pop up for most connections of like, that's a new piece of information, and it like marks it for you, so you realize. And it goes in your
menu, which I didn't find the menus particularly useful. That's kind of why I blew through it. It was like I'm gonna try to hold this all in my head because the menus are so messy.
It's a lot. Like, it gives you all the information at once.
Yes,
I think it's very. It's like one of those like I see where the aesthetic decision came in of like old computing like. Yeah. Like the screen is just full of everything you have all at once instead of like kind of newer UI where like you can selectively, make things not as messy looking.
Contrasting it with like Outer Worlds web that was so useful. Like you mentioned there being a good web before, and at first I thought you meant in the computer, the interface, which there isn't one. I wish this had the Outer World style connection. Here are each of the distinct. It does have that information. It does have the mysteries, but it doesn't. It doesn't lay them out.
Right. I kind of like that it doesn't lay them out because. So one of the things that keeps getting mentioned, and I haven't gotten to the end, so I don't know how this plays out exactly. But there is this idea of that gets mentioned up at the top and like kind of sprinkled throughout of the truth and facts being different and you building your own truth. And it feels like if there was that web kind of built out for you in a menu, that like comes across less as like a theme of like what you're doing here. I wonder, but here's the thing: I haven't actually done the trial yet.
You haven't done the trial yet, yeah. So I'm gonna talk just broadly. You could do the trial the second you start the game. You could start the game. Do the trial instantly.
I saw that like it's one of the first objectives you have. Yes. Is like return to the judge. And
serve justice, right? Because the premise of the game, again, after the council's been killed, you're trying to solve it. They have a suspect already who they think is the true suspect, who is a citizen who has previously been possessed by a demon, who seems like the obvious person. And like all good mysteries, the degree of that obviousness comes into question pretty quickly. But also, it's pretty true. He does seem like he was possessed by a demon.
Had the blood of the council members in his stomach.
Yeah, yeah, true. So what are you going to do about that? So you could immediately do it. So I'm going to feel comfortable talking very broadly about what that is like. Also because I want players to know. I would have felt better about I'm going to say a few things that are just about the game to make you feel better about playing it a certain way. Because if you don't, these are things that stressed me out, and I want you to not be stressed out about it. Right?
Great, thank you.
So one, this has nothing to do with the trial. You're going to have enough blood crystals at the end of the game. Spend them to fast travel. It's fine. I had over 40 by the end of the game. That was more than I would ever need.
That's good to know because I definitely spent way too much time searching for blood crystals to give to a certain character that
that was the right thing to do. Getting all that information is the right thing to do.
Right. It's just like I had already cleared and used, so like I spent more time doing that. And not doing. Yeah.
I'm going to help you with this. There are 2 upgrades you can get for 5 blood crystals each. I think there's only 2. Maybe there's a third. I just never found it. They are at foot baths. There are 2 foot baths on this island. You go give yourself a foot bath.
What?
One of them is near. I'm gonna just spoil where these generally are because I think they're so.
No, I know. I literally just walked by them when I was playing last. I like know where these are. I was like, I don't have money right now.
Go do both of those. One of them gives you a double jump.
What?
It's like Umurangi generation all over again, Cado.
God damn it.
2, the other one lets you ping to see collectibles around you. Or it actually just puts them all in the world for like 15 seconds.
God damn it.
What I will say is be very honest with yourself about whether or not you want to be the person who gets all the collectibles or not, because it definitely added hours onto my game that I was just pinging constantly and trying to clear whole sections. It felt good. It turned it into a podcast game for me for certain sections. So it was like, I'm just going to turn this into a platformer where I jump around and get these trinkets that don't mean anything. That's another thing is, the non-blood crystal things, most of them mean nothing. There are a few things that are side objectives, but most of them are just world-building detail. You'll find a little idol to a god, or you'll find, a snack package. And then we'll add some detail to the world. It'll tell you something about the world. Maybe, for instance, it'll give you more detail about what it's like to be a regular human who's been kidnapped to live a 9-to-5 job life, or what you do for 8 hours a day is just pray to the gods because that's the energy that these people live off of, or whatever. You'll learn those details about the world through that stuff, but you don't need them. So don't feel like you need to get all of the collectibles. There are exceptions because there's some side quests, but even that stuff I don't think does anything. It just feels good to help the people who have side quests. And another important thing, and I'm going to get to the trial in a second, is there are doors you can fake go into. You can kind of go up to, and it'll give you like a camera. It'll give you a screenshot. It'll give you like a JPEG of the inside to give you more information. So be looking at doors. Even if you see a door in the distance, you're like, I don't. That doesn't look like a real place. It's no one's in there. Still go up to it and check to make sure you can't. Just double check it. The trial.
Also,
go ahead.
I was just going to say really quickly while we were mentioning movement stuff. There's certain locked doors that you can actually like jump over walls. There's a lot of you can like jump up. This is the weird thing about it too. Is like there's like a lot of weird little platforming and getting on ledges that also like just makes it kind of fun to like oh yeah, I can get to this thing, and like every so often there'll be a blood crystal there. Like they know that they've made the game this way.
You were Skyrimming around this world in a real way by the end of it.
That's the fucking
There's
word.
a lot of jumping from a bench on top of a fence, from a fence onto a hill, then climbing the hill up to a temple. Like that is break the game that way. It wants to be broken that way. Climb up to a roof, jump from a roof that's really high into a roof that's a little bit lower to get the pickup or whatever.
One of my favorite fucking parts too. Like they do this at the opening to let you know when you're leaving your like exile to land onto the island. You're in like some like floating island, like fucking what feels like forever above the main paradise island. The only way down is just fall. You fall and like you hit a great late title card when you hit the ground, but there's no fall damage either, so you don't have to ever worry about that. You can just jump off shit.
Fall damage. It's great. And I want to say outright, there is no dialogue option that will ruin the game for you. You should ask everyone everything. You should push on buttons, or at least, I guess I don't know that for sure because there's exclusive A, B options that will give you different stuff, I think.
No, but absolutely. There's definitely, I mean, I haven't like gone back and save scum to make sure, but it definitely feels like depending on how certain conversations go, you get different information.
I don't think that's true.
Or more or less information.
See, I don't know that that's actually true.
Yeah? I have to go back and check. Let
me get to the trial, which is the trial really has. So as you play through the game, you get core mysteries. A core mystery is who is the killer? Who killed the council? Another mystery is what happened to the body of the guards out front who got killed. Right. Another mystery is where did the guy with the Greek face go to? Those are like the core mysteries. Then there's other mysteries that you get as you learn. You add new core mysteries to that set, right? Mm-hmm. And the trial, each one of those things has you choose a suspect, and then you present your evidence for that suspect. And that is when you present the evidence, you're just going through a list, hitting A or you're clicking or whatever to say, this is the evidence I have. This is the evidence I have. This is the evidence I have. And sometimes that evidence isn't good, but you present it all, and the judge goes like, yeah, that's good enough. I think that person's guilty, or not, presumably. But the point at which you are the point at which you're using your agency and leverage is choosing the suspect. So you're saying, I think it's this person, or I think it's this person, and that's the person who should be held accountable for this.
Right.
The thing that ended up happening that I really liked this about it, but it also it's sitting bad with me, not in the game as bad way, but in the like, it twists me up inside, is that there were people who I knew were guilty, but to convince the court that they were guilty, I had to throw some other people under the bus in ways that upset me. And what I realize now from talking to other people, I could have gone a different way. I could have just let certain things. I could have just gone after certain. I could have gotten Al Capone on tax charges. You know what I mean?
Right.
You don't need to. You don't necessarily need. And I don't know if that was the right thing to like. This is the truth versus fact thing, right? There are the facts of the case. You're going to build your truth out of the facts of the case, and that is the moment that you do it. Is in the trial where you decide how true are you going to be about this, or what version of events are you going to build. But if you talk to everyone, if you clear all the exclamation points off your map, if you advance everyone as high as you can in the relationship stuff, you're going to figure out this mystery. Like it's going to become clear to you. This does not require you to do Sherlock Holmes deduction where you're making huge leaps of logic. Maybe it's a little confusing because the setting is so high concept and weird magic and technology stuff is in there. But you should have a pretty clear idea. And then the process of presenting your case includes your character walking through the steps of whatever the conspiracy was. You know what I mean? So you will have a pretty good understanding of what has happened there. And it lets you save in between each major case during the trial. I do sort of wish there were more trials or you could break these up or there was a minor, just so you would know what that experience is like earlier in the game.
Right.
Because I thought harder about whether or not to talk about the trial at all, but it was so stressful for me to not know what the structure was that I felt like it's worth talking about it instead of not talking about it. Because just knowing and understanding that basically what you're doing is picking a suspect. You don't need to like do any sort of elite lawyering. You don't need to dig through your files and present the right evidence or else you lose. Because they set it up thematically like it's a big stressful moment, but it was actually kind of straightforward. It felt more like an epilogue to the game than anything else because the game is figuring it all out, Right. It honestly feels a lot like, it felt a little bit like the end of a Sherlock Holmes consulting detective game where you get there and Sherlock is like, all right, who did it? Why'd they do it? What's the whatever? Count up your points, etc. And again, like this game feels the closest thing to the board game or the Sega CD games, Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, as anything I've ever played in a video game format. So yeah, I really like it. Also, we just cannot oversell the vibe. The vibes to this game are through the fucking roof.
So
the soundtrack
good.
is great. There's stuff I want to talk about that I can't yet. And Cado, once you beat it, we have to compare notes on how we did the ending because there is a lot of flexibility there, and I'm very curious to see, what you decide.
Yeah, I'm excited to keep playing. I'm just gonna keep plugging away. It's so great on the Switch, just like being able to pick it up for a couple minutes, keep playing whenever I want, or sit down with it for a long time. It's great.
Yeah. Gita, can we talk about Wasteland 3?
A little bit, a teeny tiny bit.
What do you think? Because this is also Game Pass. This is the third Wasteland game. Yeah. The second one came out a few years ago after being crowdfunded through the fucking roof. I think this one
there was
also
like a 20 plus year break between Wasteland 1 and Wasteland 2. This is a game that Fallout is the spiritual successor to. There we go. That's what the English language is. I'm always interested in what In Exile is doing. But after reading Matthew Galt's review, I was like, maybe I could fuck with this. Maybe I could fuck with this for a little while. Because I've only been playing Crusader Kings. And I needed to play a different game. You could feel... you're so right about you started at lunch and you're late to dinner. Like, it's just... I've accidentally stayed up all night before. Twice in a week doing that. No good. Need my sleep schedule back. Wasteland... it's really fun. It's really, really fun. This is an RPG. I've got a crying cat who would like to leave this room. Sorry, baby, I'm podcasting. It's an RPG. It's set in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Where you play as the Arizona Rangers, who are apparently a group of people who came up after a nuclear apocalypse, who in Arizona are like a group of engineers and people with guns who are trying to rebuild Arizona. And they've had some trials and tribulations in the past 2 games, which I read all the spoilers on because I'm not going to play them.
Fair.
And yeah, I don't have time. Yeah. I'm a busy lady. In 3, you get an offer from the Patriarch, who is a figure in Colorado that has more or less gotten the entire state under his rule. But on your way to visit him, you are ambushed. And you're like your forces of 50.
He's the Duke Conrad of Colorado.
He absolutely is.
Yeah, and he and his sons or his children are also trying to kill him.
Yeah, they're 3 nightmare children, as he describes to you in the setup to this game. He has 3 nightmare children. One who's just loves murder. Another one who would just be a bad heir, is self-centered, narcissistic, and a third one who would be a great heir, but is really interested in subjugating everyone to work for her.
Right, yes.
Gotta say, it's taken a long time to get into this game, like to the meat of the gameplay for me, because the writing is so compelling and I'm so interested in the world building. From the moment that you have that first introductory tutorial fight, where they have the cover of "You'll be bathed in the blood of the lamb" playing, I was like, this is hitting a spot for me in this moment of pandemic gloom that I needed to have that spot scratched a little bit. Feels good.
So I pulled up on the Patriarch when I first met him just to see what level he would be, just to be all right, let's just see if I could just kill this motherfucker right now. I know he's supposed to be the guy I'm here to work with, but what if? And that also plays a song with lyrics, which was great. And Fantastic. This is going to become a standard thing in this game. That's great. Putting in tactical RPGs, playing vocal track music is good IMO.
Just completely non-diegetic music too.
Yes,
Like it doesn't come from anywhere. This is like it's the game. This game is very good at moments, and it understands like within like capital M gameplay moments, you can create stories for your player that will make them deeply identify with the characters that you're seeing on screen. So I didn't bother making my own characters because I was like, I don't know how this game works.
Yeah, sure.
And I just want to see what it's like with these tutorial characters. Later on, very quickly, you'll be able to make your own character and, you know, outfit them in the exact way that you'd like to. So I didn't really have an attachment to either Spence or Yuri, who are the two like default characters who are like pretty much all-rounders. They're pretty much fine. But until several times during one fight, I didn't have enough action points to get one of the characters behind cover, and she just kept getting shot and like getting wasted. Every time you revive someone from being down, they'll take with them an injury that will affect like the way in which they'll be able to do combat. Like they'll get some kind of debuff that will last until you get an injury kit to remove them or see a doctor. And she had 3 of those. And then I just felt like very attached to her very suddenly. Yeah. You know? This game is like, really... Yeah.
You go ahead. I guess I just want to... It's a thing I've been thinking about a lot with games lately, partially because of the Crusader Kings III Conrad experience, or someone who gets hurt and quote-unquote maimed and disfigured, partially because this mechanic you're talking about in Wasteland. And there was another thing I've been playing, and I can't put my finger on... I started playing Darkest Dungeon again. To compare it to something we're going to talk about in a second, Star Renegades, which has some similarities. But I've been thinking a lot about this deployment in games of permanent or near permanent injury. You know, obviously like words like disfigurement, etc. Partially because it's like, okay, well, how are they handling this? I think Crusader Kings understands that these are like social things in a real way, that like the disfigurement doesn't make you... Being wounded in combat or from a disease doesn't make you a worse person. It is that society produces an expectation of those who have been wounded in this way, that, you know, being wounded does reduce your martial score because you've been physically hurt or whatever. But when you lose dread because you're wearing because you have had lost a leg, that's because socially there is an expectation that people who've lost a limb are not as threatening or something like that.
Yes.
And it kind of, you know, one of the things that's like big in contemporary, you know, disability studies and discourse is understanding disability as a social thing, not just an internal physical thing. But the other thing that happens in games a lot is, because games are so combat focused, I think about like XCOM can go into this too, and because the world in which, or the kind of space in which marking the character, giving them traits, is so limited in most games, Crusader Kings notwithstanding, wounds end up being, and injuries and disability end up being one of the ways in which a character is differentiated from the other characters near them, if that makes sense. And so it's serving this other purpose, like ludically, to the player of being like, oh shit, that's the person who got injured 3 times. I love them. And I don't know how to, I don't have a thesis here. It's just a thing that's been on my mind lately because it reflects, I think, a truth of games, which is games are very good at hurting their characters, or giving them the ability to hurt other characters. And it's interesting to see that like the ones that we go to are the ones who can be wounded easily, like Donald in Fire Emblem, or the ones who get wounded permanently, like this character in Wasteland, where you're like, all right, I'm going to fucking see you through. You're going to have a fucking dope experience in this Wasteland.
Yeah, I just really like... It's one thing to show your impact in the world, which I think video games are really, really, really good at doing. Right. RPGs are very good at reflecting. RPGs, specifically like this kind of RPG. I'm so excited I knocked my mic. Specifically like this kind of RPG are very, very good at showing your impact of the world. Wasteland 3 seems to also want to forefront this part of the experience, which is that the world has an impact on you. Right. And it will beat you down in specific ways. Even in this thing where like a lot of conversations you have with characters who are named and have like animated portraits, those conversations you can really only ask a limited number of questions a lot of the time. like you're not going to get out of this experience knowing everything.
Right.
It's replicating a human experience in a way that I think is very interesting for games to do, especially because I'm so used to games being power fantasies.
Right, where it's like, hey, I can ask this person 30 questions.
Yeah.
In a way that would just be like, feel like an interrogation in real life. And someone would be like, yo, chill. You've asked me deep personal questions and I've given you the answers and been clearly annoyed and you've just shifted tracks and asked me a different deep personal question. Nah.
Yeah.
We're ending this conversation.
I thought I was going to get a chance to do that with a character who was literally bleeding out and she like died in the middle of the convo. And I was like, you know what? It's this kind of world. Okay, kind of world. I understand this now.
Yes, totally.
It feels to me like that kind of push-pull of having success in a world that will try to beat you down. That is a gameplay experience I'm finding very satisfying right now. Just like loading it up and just looking around at random shit in this cold, like snow blown. I mean, maybe also because it's like incredibly hot in New York currently, but like in this very cold environment and just knowing that like I'm going to make a permanent mistake that I will have to deal with for the rest of the game. I don't know. In like, especially this week of the news cycle, this is the kind of thing that I'm seeking from my entertainment. So it's been so satisfying. I love the combat. The combat fucking rocks.
Yeah. How are you feeling about the combat? To me, that is the thing that I'm like, it hasn't hit for me yet, but that might be because I did build my own characters and maybe I built bad characters.
Yeah.
Do shit,
The main guys, they give you points in the weapons that you're going to be using immediately. And like that was the main, like there's so many different options for building a character and you have so few points to allocate. It's hard to know if you go in there blind, like what to do. And I found it very helpful to start with the starter characters and then move on to creating my own.
That is what I should have done.
To fill out the team, you know, like as soon as you get the base.
That's the thing is I didn't know that was coming. I didn't. So there's a point early on where you get a base and then you can talk to someone and be like, I want to recruit people. And there you can make your own characters too. And if I had known that was coming, and maybe I should have known that was coming. Maybe there was a pop-up that said that. And I was like, I don't know when that's going to be.
No, there wasn't.
So I should have just started with pre-created characters and then switched over. But oh well.
I only went with the pre-created just because I remembered for the last CRPG I played, I hate that.
I know.
That thing, but it does classic RPG. For old people RPG, the kind that my brother played when he was a gamer RPG.
Right.
Like I remembered for Divinity Original Sin 2, the pre-made characters they're fantastic. Just better.
Yeah.
They're really good.
The other thing for me with the combat is I'm currently still playing Divinity Original Sin 2, which has
that combat's just so good.
That combat's just so good. And this reminds me of like Shadowrun Returns, Dragonfall, Hong Kong.
See, I was going to go shitty XCOM is how it feels like to me.
Totally.
It's like
Those
XCOM but less.
Pretzels is the same.
Pretzels is the same,
that to me feels like the overlap. That to me is the overlap for sure. You're totally right. Whereas like Divinity Original Sin 2 is like out the gate so flashy and you're doing so much different shit that I think that's just an unfair comparison in some ways, but that's the
in Divinity Original Sin 2 you can just have so many interactions between the environment and the players you're shooting and the spells you have. Here you've got guns.
Right. Here you got guns and like a Molotov maybe, you know?
Yeah.
God, Baldur's Gate 3.
You can shoot some explosives. That would be chill, but like you're not having as high of an impact. It's still, it is hitting the tactical part of my brain enough so that if I'm going to be in these combat encounters often, which I gather I am, I'm in that mindset and, you know, going from Crusader Kings to this where I still have to think tactically and in terms of long-term strategy.
Right.
I'm using the same part of my brain.
Right,
so
you're
that works
scratching
for
that
me.
itch, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, it definitely does. The shitty XCOM, I wish there were a little bit more shitty XCOMs, like in this style, right?
Totally. Listen, they're not there anymore, but they were free on Epic for like a week there or 2 weeks there. The Shadowrun games are actually, I think, Dragonfall and Hong Kong more than Returns, but those are worth your time. If they end up being free or cheap at some point, I really, really recommend Dragonfall. And I didn't finish Hong Kong, but I enjoyed it more than Returns. Returns is fine, you know.
You've been recommending Hong Kong for me for a long time.
I think you would like it a lot.
It's been on that wish list for a while.
I think you would really like those games. Also, this reminds me that Baldur's Gate 3 is out at the end of the month. Or not out, but early access at the end of the month.
Oh, right.
It's early access, so that means I can safely dip into it for an hour and then be like, I'm done. This is a nice little demo. I'm not going to play it.
Want to know something really, really funny is that my brother is older than me. He's like 34. He's about to turn 35. He's played games at a time when PC gaming was the default, basically. Big Counter-Strike guy. The games that are available for him to buy right now are all games that like he played. It was Baldur's Gate 3, Tony Hawk, and Wasteland.
Yeah,
and I could just text him and be like, "Hey, I think you might like Wasteland 3," because we had a conversation about trying to go back and play KOTOR, and he was like, "For me, like the bloom is gone. I can't do it." And I was like, "Okay, well, try Wasteland 3, dude."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
God. Also in the early access tip, I want to shout out a game that I think I talked about originally early this year, which was Gordian Quest, which is a card-based RPG, that I really liked. I think that the basics of it are really good. That just got a huge content drop, and the way that it's also early access, but it's doing early access pretty distinctly. It's doing like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 type stuff, except each act is self-contained, where like it's its own campaign. You can carry over upgrades for your like, not for your character, like more there's kind of run-based style permanent upgrades that you can unlock in this game. And those stick with you, but you're starting a new game with each act. So it's not like you're not carrying your whole character over, with all of their upgrades and equipment and stuff from Act 1 to Act 2. You're starting a new campaign in a new location with new characters. And that second act of that just dropped, which I haven't dug too deep into yet, but does have like a new class, which is Bard, and it does have like a whole new map and a whole new area, and like the way you move around that area is different. So if you liked that game and you were like, oh, I can't wait for more of that is out now, and people should check that out, because I genuinely think it's of the sort of like games that are trying to do What If Slay the Spire but campaign length instead of run based. Gordian Quest is like, feels like it's doing that kind of, not the best. I think I like Griftlands more. Not that Griftlands is a run of Griftlands is much longer than Slay the Spire, but it's in that same space. But Gordian Quest is really, really, really just a joy to move stuff around with and upgrade your characters and like go through that arc. So people should check that out.
Griftland's still in early access, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Also
that
still
game
working. Also,
is
that's
also super fun.
Yeah, that game is so good. And that game's also similar in that each character is its own unique, like, this is your character. This is Sal. This is, I forget the other guy's Fibbo. I don't remember what the other guy's name is.
know.
I feel bad. Anyway,
play more of that game.
We should also shout out really quick, Cado, you've been playing some Star Renegades.
Yeah.
Speaking of run-based RPGs.
Speaking of Slay the Spire.
And we talked about Star Renegades a couple of weeks ago as I played a demo build of it. But yeah, what are you thinking of it so far?
I'm really, really enjoying it. To refresh everyone's memory about how the combat works, I guess essentially
more broadly, it's a roguelike RPG, right? That's like the highest high level.
Yes. And in combat, basically what you're playing around with is a lot of like, there's a timeline at the top of the screen, and you can, if you hit someone before they hit you in a turn, you get a crit, and a lot of attacks have a special like, when you crit, it's not just that it does extra damage, it also has different effects, and a lot of those are shifting. It will shift the enemy backwards in the timeline. Yes. So you end up trying to figure out how to kind of optimize a turn to make sure that the enemy doesn't get to go. And there is, however, a limit to how many times you can do that, and eventually that enemy will attack on a turn. So you have to kind of plan you do have like defensive moves,
or stuns, which are not like the pushback, but will just instantly stun a person. But maybe, and I think this changed from the demo, you could only spend that stun once per fight now, which is so difficult sometimes, like especially against bosses where like this fight's gonna go long. I really need another way of stopping this person from fucking swinging on me or being ready to defend in a better way than I actually am.
Yeah. And as you go through different levels, you start to gain more characters. You start with 3. And then you recruit 1 at the end of each planet. And the way that planets are laid out is actually kind of like, what if you took Slay the Spire's paths, but made it like a map that you walk around almost? Because once you like
comparison,
right? Like once you like pick a section to go to, you're kind of like you've locked yourself into that path until the next day, basically. Each day consists of you choosing 3 paths to unlock, because they're all being locked down by the enemy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And your little robot that is technically the character you're playing, Justin, I think is his name. It's like JU5.
Oh yeah,
7I
robot. Yes.
Yeah, is technically the one, the thing that will travel through different timelines if you lose. Because if you lose, that timeline, that dimension is fucked and gets taken over by the baddies, and you have to cross over, find those same people, and like kind of try to lead them through to defeat the Imperium. It's the bads.
It is real. Like I go ahead. What were you gonna say? I can.
Well, the last thing I was gonna mention was that after each day on that map, you camp out with your teammates, and you have basically everyone has a set of cards that you play with like energy, just like in many deck like rogue builders. But you usually have like, I don't know, like 5 energy or whatever. Each card costs something, and what those do is either they heal or they give buffs for the next couple of combats, and also raise the relationship level between the two characters that like the character that's using it and the character that's receiving the buff or healing.
It's a lot like the Darkest Dungeon camp out moves also. I don't know if you've played.
I've never played that game. I feel
Darkest
like
Dungeon
I should have.
has a very similar thing, which is like you do on medium and long length like adventures, missions or whatever. You stop to take like a campsite, and recover stress and health and buff each other, and every character has certain abilities that do that, which is again the same as this. Though here you can also get drops that are consumable downtime, like actions, basically. Like, oh, you found this food, or you beat a boss together, and that will raise your relationship with your the other person who's on your team.
Yeah, and there's like different like almost Fire Emblem style like relationship ranks. Like you can't S rank with everyone,
right?
But when you do max out, you get a combo move with that person that you can use in battle that requires there's like a special meter that fills up over as you do attacks, as you do crits, that you can spend for like powerful moves.
I haven't found a combo move that I think is necessarily worth it yet. I'll do it if it's like gonna win.
You have
the fight.
You got the shield person, right?
Yeah.
The shield and the like main character. There's a kind of a main character that like there's an opening
she's clearly
cinematic.
Like the lead. Yeah.
Theirs is actually really good for that turn where you're like, well, shit, I'm gonna get hit with 3 things.
Sure. Okay.
It's
it's like a super defense, basically.
It's super defense on the entire team, and it's like plus 40 defense, and also it reflects damage back onto the enemy.
That sounds good.
One of the better ones.
Most of the attacky ones I've seen, I've been like, well, I'm really trading the ability to have 2 people do timeline knockback delay stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Or have one person stun and
There is, I have been noticing, because the other thing that this game does is that it has the nemesis system essentially for the kind of lieutenants and bosses that are scattered around these maps. Some of them are weak to combos. Right. Like I have seen that. There are weaknesses and stuff that will like, okay, I'll end up doing that for that. But yeah, like I'm sorry, I lost where I was going with that, but
you're ranking up your relationships with these people over time.
Right, you're getting combos when you max out like people's relationships.
Right. Have you gotten anyone to a 4-star yet? Because I've only gotten up to 3, but I know that some characters have 4-star relationships.
No, I haven't hit like the S rank or whatever.
I'm very curious if what that does, and we should say that like it is more like each of your characters has a name. They all have different classes and stuff, obviously, but it's like here is. Your shield person is not just a person who is like the shield class. It is actually a person with a character with a specific name and personality and stuff.
You can even change that name if you want to. Like,
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
okay, that's
cool. Go into
that's
the
cool.
squad screen.
Oh, God, I wish I could. If I could, I would just turn it on to like give me a random name and a palette swap every time. Because there is a class, right? Like it is like, this guy is the enforcer. This person is the Valkyrie.
Still haven't grabbed the enforcer, actually.
He's interesting. So after in between runs, you get currencies from killing named enemies, like big enemies, from getting further into the campaign, from collecting stuff, and then you can spend those currencies to unlock new characters, to unlock not items, but like the ability for those items to spawn in the world, basically, for special weapons, variations on the classes, or maybe that's just from leveling them up through the course of play. I don't remember, but like at this point, when I start as the Valkyrie, for instance, there's like a default version of her, like the rookie version of her, that gets better relationship bonuses during the kind of campfire scenes.
Everyone has that rookie beginning one.
Right. Or a variation that I want to say like steals armor or steals shields or something. I forget what the variation is, but there are variations in that way that give you big buffs as you do you kind of trade away that bonus relationship stuff for some sort of good bonus long term for the classic, almost like a subclass variant.
Right.
So yeah, that's the gist of it. Are you how many hours have you put into this?
Let me double check my Steam. Quite a few. I've been playing this also a lot. 8 hours.
Yeah. Okay.
Over the weekend, basically.
Have you finished a run yet?
No.
I'm so curious. I also haven't. I've gotten to the final world or 3 worlds. I got to the boss of the 3rd world, I want to say.
Okay. That's where I'm at. And then the next one isn't a world per se.
No. I mean, you see it. It's a ship or something, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, you do see it on that map once you leave the first world. It's it's the like Imperium ship. Here's the thing, though, and we mentioned this the other day in a chat, but the Nemesis system screen, like you're near the top of what is a very long screen that you can kind of scroll down. That seems really empty in a way where I'm like, that feels like that's going to get filled out at some point.
There's the Nemesis. So, like, if people haven't played the Shadow of Mordor games, which that's fine, there's a screen you can go to that shows you all of the named enemies on the Evil Empire side. And the way it's set up is that there's like 5 of them per world, and each level of the campaign is a world that you're going to like try to save. So you go through it. Each of these worlds has like random grunt enemies, but also these named ones who have special resistances and reactions and weaknesses and a personality type, basically. And that changes what they yell at you when you fight them. But it also changes like, if you do a heavy attack on this one, it enrages them, and that means that they do extra damage for the next turn or whatever, right? And as you go through this, that screen is literally a depiction of a big room on an enemy spaceship where there are hollow projections of the 3 worlds you're going to go to, and those people are like, those legions of people are out in front of you. And on that screen is the screen that Cado is saying, it looks like you could scroll down and see the platforms where other worlds would show up. And I suspect they have to, because I just looked this up. There are 13 different classes in this game. I've only unlocked like 5 of them or something. Half of the screens are blacked, or like the portrait areas are blacked out, which means I think you probably unlock those other characters once you beat that first set of worlds or something.
Right.
And each of those classes have 48 different, or all said, there are 48 variations across those 13 classes. That to me makes me think there was a much longer like tail on that game than what you might necessarily think,
Yeah, totally. This it feels like the runs are maybe a little long for what
I think they're too long. I do.
Because like the point of it being a roguelike is that you unlock new stuff and you want to be able to see that before. Like I'm 8 hours in and I've only done 1 reset here, which means
really? Jeez.
Yeah.
I've done more than that, which just means I've died sooner. Actually, I played a few more hours than you, I guess. So
okay. I got my first run. I got pretty far. I got into I think I died on the boss of the 2nd world, and then I reset, and I'm on the boss of the 3rd world now. But yeah, and that's 8 hours. That's 2 runs in 8 hours, which means like if this expands more, like there just seems to be infinite time that I don't know that I want to. Like I might
Is this a game that's been built for 100 hours of play as the expectation?
Which
if you're Northern Lion and you want to do, who's a YouTube streamer who does super long Binding of Isaac and Darkest Dungeon runs, then maybe that's what you need in a game like this, or if that's the style of game you're looking for.
Right.
But in a busy fall, I could see where maybe that's not necessarily what you want.
However, I do feel like I wonder how much those variations are exciting, given how I'm enjoying it so much now that I don't even know that if there's more past the 4 starting worlds that you see at the beginning. I'm maybe I beat this and depending on how interesting any sort of story plays out, because there are some things about possibly your mother is in charge of all the bad guys, I think, right?
That's I have a guess based on the intro stuff, which is that it's maybe it's your mother, maybe it's your brother, maybe it's because you lose your brother in the opening, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Also in their anime trailer, I think have you seen their anime trailer for this game?
Yeah, does that not play when you start?
Oh yeah, that does play at the start. Yes. Okay, yeah. It's clearly a sister-brother face-off situation at the end of that trailer, right?
No. What? Hold on. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong anime trailer. Do they have multiple anime trailers?
Star Renegades anime. I just know they literally called it their corruption anime trailer. Yeah, I'm gonna link it. Which is neat because it is just 2D looking animation, anime style animation, which I think is cool. Though also I think that it's kind of does a disservice to the fact that this game just looks dope by its own aesthetic, and it doesn't really need. It doesn't really need. I think that this game looks like what was that JRPG that came out a few years ago that did kind of a two they were calling a 2.5D thing. It was a Switch game, Octopath Traveler. It's playing in that Octopath Traveler space of using lots of bloom and having kind of 2D characters in a 3D
all sprite
environment, but all still sprite based. Yes, yeah. Exactly. I think it also owes a lot to kind of the sword and sorcery look, or the Deconstruct Team stuff, Red Strings Club, and what is the other Deconstruct Team? Gods Will Be Watching.
See, that's Absolute Your Mom. Sorry, I was watching this trailer. Yeah, look at her necklace.
Yeah, I thought that her brother has the same necklace. Isn't that the thing?
No. At the beginning of this trailer, she gives her half the necklace.
Okay, I was reading that. Okay, then probably your mom.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, I see it now. I see it.
But also all the enemies call the big bad mother.
The mother, yeah.
So it's literally
totally.
your mother.
Yeah,
I just was wondering whether or not it was actually your mother, or if they just use that.
Use the word mother. Yeah, we'll see. Neither of us have gotten there yet, so this is all speculation. In any case, I do suspect there will be a big post game based on the degree to which there is space for expanding these characters out and leveling them up, or getting new variations and finding ones that we haven't even fucking seen yet. So I think that the core fight mechanics are so there's an attention to every move I make in this game that I can only compare to Darkest Dungeon, or I guess really serious tactics games. No, I think it's less than Divinity Original Sin 2, where I can really be oh shit, which of these 18 moves that I have should I do this turn? But it is more than the average JRPG, where I'm kind of just cast fire 3,
right?
And that's the weakness or whatever.
And specifically the order in which you have to kind of also pay attention, the order in which you're doing things. Each character will have a different speed, and because there's only a certain amount of times you can knock something back on the timeline, you have to be real careful about what attacks are being done in what order to make sure you got the break right. Or sometimes you'll end up pushing them most of the way, but not quite all the way, because an attack came in earlier than you thought.
Yeah, you have a healer robot guy as one of the starting characters, and that character has like an AoE attack that hits everybody a little bit and knocks them back on the timeline just a little bit. It doesn't do like a good deep push, but that attack is so light that it happens very early in the timeline. So if you've planned on doing 2 big heavy hits that are going to knock someone off the timeline, but they can only be knocked back twice that round, which is one of the things we've kind of danced around, is enemies have a certain resistance to being knocked back, where they can only be knocked back a certain number of times per round. That you can fuck up and be like, oh, I tapped them and then hit them hard, and that's not enough to make them not attack me this round. Right, now one of my people is dead. Fuck. Yeah. This is another game that I do wonder. It's so funny. It's like 3 years ago I was not this person, but now I am saying I wish there was a none. I wish I could save scum, or I wish I could. I wish there was a mode that wasn't built around the kind of run-based stuff. And I don't know if that's...
It's like the runs are so long that I don't know that I'll ever do more than is needed to just get to the end once.
Yeah.
Right?
It was like FTL, where I could beat an entire run in 50 minutes. I was going to replay that game, you know?
Right.
And I did a bunch. Same thing with Into the Breach, right? Into the Breach, I'm going to replay that game so many times because a run is not more than an hour, you know?
Or even Slay the Spire, which has slightly longer runs, but still enough that like short enough that you're like, you know, you're doing the loop pretty quickly. It just feels like these are like so long that like I don't know that I'm actually getting that much out of that specific mechanic because I'm not seeing it as often, right?
I also kind of feel like I've gotten to fights where I've been like, well, I can't do shit. I can't win this fight. Like, this is just going to be more to me, harder to me than I could ever do, right? Where like, based on where my characters are at. Because one of the things that's happening is you go to a new place, you have basically you can go to a certain number of fights or go into a certain number of areas before you have to fight the boss. And there have definitely been times where I'm like, I fought the hardest fights I could fight here, and I just didn't get good enough equipment to where I could win this fight, it feels like. I just couldn't delay this super attack or defend against it well enough. And maybe that's party composition or something, and that's on me. But like, you know, it feels like it's one of those games where you can feel like I lost this fight, but what I really did was I lost this fight 45 minutes ago because I bought gun A instead of gun B, or I didn't take this fight on. You know what I mean? I
feel like I haven't found that with the weapons yet, you know, like they kind of feel, unless there's someone who's specifically resistant to a thing.
Well, that's the thing that happened was I fought someone who was specifically resistant to, or maybe it wasn't it was a boss. It was because the furthest I got was the end of that third planet boss, where it was like, this is just a fight I can't do damage output quick enough and heal quick enough to do it. And I couldn't get through. I think it was maybe I couldn't burn the armor down quick enough or something, but I felt like, I played all of my cards right, so to speak. I made all of the right decisions in this fight in terms of managing as best I could. My strategy was right, or my tactics were right, but there must have been something I should have done 30 minutes ago to buff my people differently or something. Or I guess maybe what I'm hitting at is there's opacity in what I did wrong. I can't tell you what I did wrong in that fight or on the way to that fight. It just feels like I fucked up somewhere along the line, which is a bad feeling.
Right. And that's an issue with when the runs tend to be longer too. It's just like less experience, like the way that, you know, all the like Souls games, like you die and you learn from it, like some of like the roguelike structure has that kind of baked into it too, but when the run is so long, like you're not gaining as much experience from that specific loss as you normally would. If it were a much shorter time, you could do it many times, you know. I feel like I might be hitting that soon. We'll see. There's a couple fights coming up that are like they'll show you like what level they are, and like they're all like 2 levels above where my character like spread currently is, and I'm just like getting worried. But
I need to. I might just spoil myself on what happens after you beat that final that final fight, so definitely that I know curious. what I'm looking at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's I don't mind that sort of thing, especially in a game like this where I'm like, okay, I get it. I get what the structure of this thing is. That's what matters to me more than this is. I'm not playing this game for the story. I think that there's like some fun writing in it here or there. I think that their version of the Star Wars Cantina is really fun. Yeah. But I am not, and I'm curious about what happens in the end game or whatever, but I'm not like, well, you know, on pins and needles.
Yeah, it's It's weird. It's in an interesting point in my mind where it's like I can still recommend this even though I think the runs are too long, because even if you don't see many runs, I feel like the core combat is still so like it's really hitting that like I compared it previously just speculatively to Into the Breach, but the same idea of like making like planning through the turn and making like the perfect turn line up of where you're using one character to knock a character off the timeline, which opens up your like slower character to get like the strongest hit in that like shreds all of their armor, so that next time like the big AoE attack comes in and it does all like the damage that it needs, like all of those like things fitting in a specific order and like needing to like suss out what the right order of operations is each round is like really really fun. And I think if you enjoy that, you'll get that out of that, even if you don't end up doing a million runs or like I think it really hit like early on, and like it just kept getting better as they kind of added more. There's so many mechanics, but it never feels overwhelming.
Totally.
Almost like like they at a certain point you figure out that there's actually like formation lines of like who you can attack. Yep. And it's just like adding that extra bit of like, oh, now I realize that a bunch of the attacks that I was doing actually are you can select people, or they're like, oh shit, this can only hit this one person in the front line. And I never knew because all the enemies were frontline before, but like it unlocks in a way where it's opening up, even though it's not giving you more attacks necessarily. It's just changing your relationship to how you're thinking about them, which is really
also
good.
I just want to shout out it has a very good fast forward mechanic. You can hold B during combat to fast forward through something, and sometimes you don't want to. Sometimes you've seen the combat encounter or the combat stuff enough that you kind of just want a taste of it. You don't need to see the whole combat animation play out. Right. And it's stylized. It feels like hitting the fast forward button on a VCR more than just like doing it without any sort of visual effect. And I think it helps keep you in that moment in a way that other fast forward modes have not in RPGs. So, Star Renegades, I like it a lot.
Yeah,
it was a long one. We went pretty long today, but I feel like that's because we're fucking in it a way. So we should wrap things up. As always, you can send your questions to gaming@vice.com. Continue to send in your boss and food emails. We'll have to do another catch up on that one because
absolutely
because we still have a bunch of them. We will. So for the third year running, the staff and community of Waypoint, which is obviously, Waypoint still exists, especially as a community and as this podcast. We're hosting another Save Point. We're doing another Save Point stream. When I say we, I mean the incredible mod and community team, and then Rob, who's been kind of reining it in or has been at the kind of Vice side of the reins, is doing another Save Point marathon. We are doing, last year we did Trans Lifeline. The year before that, we did the Florence Project, the Florence Immigrant and Refugee Rights Project. This year, we are doing National Bailout, which is a Black-led and Black-centered collective of kind of abolitionist organizers, lawyers, and activists that focus on freeing, mostly Black moms and caregivers from pretrial detention. And also just developing leadership in the prison abolition movement. I think it's a very important cause right now for what I hope are pretty obvious reasons if you're a listener of Waypoint Radio. And that is going to run from September 16th, which is this coming Wednesday, through the evening of Sunday, September the 20th. And it'll be us, it'll be guests, it'll be a lot of community members and mods joining in. I'm very excited for it. I'll be there probably a few of those days. It is going to be a daily thing more than a GD or a GDQ style super marathon. People will be stopping to sleep and stuff, but we'll be there every day in some combination. We're going to try to do this thing where we're like spreading out our appearances so that it's not just like here's the Waypoint block and here's the Waypoint community block, because we want to get the community more involved. So look forward to kind of meeting some new people and checking out some stuff with some guests. I will be there most of those days. I don't know, Cado and Gita, do you know what your commitment is at this point?
Oh, I'm opening this shit up.
Hell yeah.
I'm opening this pit up with some Crusader Kings with Rob. I'm pretty excited about that. I'm very excited about that.
That sounds great.
Hell yeah.
Cado, do you have anything do you know what your
I don't know. I'm gonna be around all the time probably because I'm gonna like help make sure. Here's the thing: we're running this. We're streaming from a million different places.
Yeah, we are not doing the thing of going into the Vice offices. We're being safe about this. We're not going to be fools.
And so therefore I will probably be around every single day helping someone. But also I will definitely at least one thing I know I'm doing for sure is that at some point I'm going to be playing Tony Hawk with Jason EIC.
Hell yeah.
Oh man.
Awesome.
I'm
very
so
excited
psyched for that.
Awesome. Yeah, we have a bunch of stuff that is lined up that'll be really fun. I believe I'm going to play some Captain Tsubasa with Trey, which is exciting to me.
Yes.
I need to find my Elgato and make sure that still works, or else buy Captain Tsubasa on PC, I guess. I think there's going to be like I said, we're not doing any overnight segments, except I'm about to say that I think we're going to have a stretch goal to make me do an overnight segment, because I want to do an overnight segment because I like doing late night overnight streams, and I'm a night owl already. I love that vibe. For people who watched the Extra Life when I was at Giant Bomb, people know that I really love that late night hang out in the chat, answer questions, play games, like hang out vibe. So if you raise enough money for the national bailout, you can have a late night Austin Walker stream at some point. So look forward to that. I'm excited for this. Again, the community team, all of the mods, and Rob have all been working really, really hard on this for months now. So shout outs to everyone involved there. Shout outs to the national bailout, and look forward to it. Again, Wednesday the 16th through Sunday the 20th, over on twitch.tv/Waypoint. We'll have links and information and stuff, and links to donate and stuff next week closer to the event. So yeah, tune in, get ready for it. I'm excited. With that said, you can find me on Twitter at Austin_Walker. And like I said, twitter.com/Waypoint for Waypoint. Gita, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me at XOXOGossipGita.
And Cado.
At A_Cado_appears.
Thank you, as always, to Bowen for letting us use the track Miss You off the EP Pale Machine. Find out more about that at waypoint.zone/BOEN. And as always, fuck capitalism. Go home.
Ah!